Hello, everybody. This is so exciting, and yet it feels so weird because I can't see any of you, but I know that there are almost 120 of you out there so far ready for this conference, and that is thrilling to me. Welcome to the first ever Redwood Coast Region Economic Development Summit, Future Forward. And I would like to begin by acknowledging that I am speaking to you from Eureka on unceded ancestral Wiyot tribal land known as Jarujiji in the Wiyot language. We want to thank them for the stewardship of these lands for thousands of years. Because this is a virtual conference, we recognize that many of our guests, speakers, and prisoners are here virtually from different tribal territories. So we'd like to invite you to identify what tribal lands you're joining us from and share it in the chat. And if you're not sure, you can learn more by visiting native-land.ca. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects Native Americans as traditional stewards of this land and the enduring relationship that exists between Native American tribes and their traditional territories. We are continuing to have people come in. We're at about 130 folks now, but with over 250 registrants today, I am guessing we're still waiting for a few folks to find their way in. So I'm going to take a few minutes while we're waiting to take care of some housekeeping and sort of give you some background on this conference. The conference is a regional concept, has been in the works for several years. I've done this a few times, Humboldt County economic summits, but for a while we've really been wanting to create a bigger group because our regions work together and we have similar opportunities, we have similar challenges, and we have a bigger voice when we can all speak together. So while we'd hope to bring everybody together in person, we also find that even beyond COVID-19 safety protocols, there are benefits to having a virtual event. Most importantly, it provides an opportunity for people to participate who may not have been able to travel, even within our own region. So we'll see participants over the next few weeks in the next few days from as far south as Point Arena and as far north as Crescent City. So welcome to everybody from the whole region. One of the less ideal parts of having a virtual conference, especially one that's using a new platform, is that there is a learning curve for anyone who is new to the platform hop-in, and that seems to be almost all of us. So please be patient and allow for a few glitches and grumbles as we learn a new tool, and recognize that when it's all done, we will be better for it, and maybe even find that there are some elements to this platform that are really exciting and engaging. That's why we picked it. As a part of the conference, we actually, you know what, I'm going to start by thanking our sponsors who have made this all possible, including our presenting sponsors, which include AEDC, that's where I work, County of Humboldt Office of Economic Development, College of the Redwoods, and the Headwaters Fund. And I just realized when I talked about AEDC, I didn't even tell you guys who I am. So I'm so sorry. We'll just pretend like it's the beginning. And hi, my name is Susan Seaman. I am the chair of the summit. I work for Arcata Economic Development Corporation, and I also am the mayor of Eureka. So welcome for those who don't know me, and I'm super thrilled to know that there are lots of you out there I haven't met before. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you. I was thinking our sponsors, who include our presenting sponsors, but we have lots of others. And if you received our Future Forward program in the swag bag that was mailed out last week, you can find all of them on the back page. And we have sponsored levels from $500 or $250 to $1,500 and above. And people really came forward and helped us out. and made this a really excellent conference. So thank you to everybody who participated in that. You can also find our list of sponsors on our website if you don't have your program. If you're near Eureka, have not gotten a swag bag yet, but you can pick one up. We have them here in our office at 707 K Street. So just shoot me an email and let me know you're coming by, and we can have them waiting for you, and you can just pick them up. You'll not only get this very cool program, and I will talk about this program a lot because it is truly amazing, but we also have a special notepad that was created to help you take notes during the sessions. You'll have treats in that bag from all 3 of our counties, as well as useful information from a number of our sponsors and partners. So I hope you enjoyed getting it. It was certainly fun to put together. Those bags were mailed compliments of Sea Crane Company, which is one of our sponsors. They do packing and mailing services for businesses. So if you didn't know that that was an option, you could reach out to them and see if they can do some of that for you. I did not realize what a huge job that was until I saw what 200 stuffed canvas bags actually looked like. They took up our entire conference room floor. It took an entire truckload to get that over to Sea Crane, and they were just a joy to work with. And I just have a whole different respect for what a generous contribution that was when they offered to package and mail all of those bags. So thank you to them. And I also want to say that this event has been a truly collaborative process. Every single person who worked on it put in a ton of time and skill and effort. I think they all made commitments, and those commitments, I like to compare it to eating octopus. You know, you stick it in your mouth, and the more you chew, the bigger it gets. And even as those commitments grew, people stepped up and they made this happen. So we had support on our committee from all 3 counties putting this together, but I want to give a special shout out to our event chairs, which include Nancy Olson from Humboldt State University, who was the chair of our Emerging Leaders Program, Layla Roberts from North Coast SBDC, and David Loya from the City of Arcata helped coordinate all of our sessions on Friday. Our marketing chair, Allie Jones from Allie Illuminated, has been doing a great job helping us get the word out about the conference, and she helped develop that amazing program that I keep talking about. And finally, I really want to recognize Clara Shook, who has been a one-person technology team who has been working tirelessly to learn and teach all of us about Hopin, answering just so many emails, and is still smiling, although I think she might collapse as soon as this is over. So huge thank you to Clara and to everybody who is helping to make this happen today. I want to make sure everyone is aware that we're going to be recording all of the elements of this conference. So that's great news for those of you who can't decide which Friday sessions you want to attend. There's so many great choices. They're all going to be uploaded to a YouTube video channel next week, and I will send you all the information about how to access them, or somebody will. If you do not want to be recorded, you can turn your camera and mic off. You can turn your camera and mic on, or you can keep them off if you don't want to be recorded. During the sessions, only 20 cameras are allowed to be open at a time in Hopin. So if you're having trouble turning it on, maybe that's the reason. Please take advantage of as many of the engaging features as this platform as possible. So I want to bring your attention to the screen that you're looking at right now. And on the right-hand side, you can see there's a box. It's kind of a box, and it says event, backstage, or you probably don't see backstage. It has a main stage, and it has people, and it's not looking the same today because, you know, everything changes. Anyways, so what it's supposed to, or what it will see, especially when you're in the sessions, is that it will say Q&A, chat, and people. And when you register, they probably asked you to complete a bio. So that's like your virtual business card. As people are using these sessions over on the side, if they click people, they can find you and all of your information will come up about how to reach you outside of the conference. As well, you can send each other direct messages. If you put your messages in chat, it will either go to the whole event or everybody in your session, depending on which one of those tabs you're in. So you can talk to people directly, you can talk to them in your session, you can talk to them event-wide. So we really want you to engage with each other as well as engage in the presentations. Even in regular Zoom meetings, so much great work is done in the chat part of the activity, just like in a real in-person conference. Then on the left-hand side of your screen, you're going to see a different parts of the conference, the different areas that you can visit. And we are going to be utilizing the main stage and the sessions, and we're going to be using the networking and expo halls. So be sure to pop in those areas and look around. We have some designated times to do that. When you do visit the expo halls, I want to make sure you add your name and email to the chat. We are going to gather all of those chat names and emails and put them into a drawing for some fantastic prizes, including a Dick Taylor Craft Chocolates gift box and some other small prizes. So be sure, visit the rooms, put in your name, talk to folks, just like this is a real conference. And finally, as much as we worked on trying to incorporate a new video platform, some activities just are simply better as a Zoom presentation. This is the case with Senator McGuire's panel today. So we have sent Zoom links to you by email and we'll continue to post them throughout the day. After we complete Dr. Lancaster's presentation, we will all leave to a Zoom presentation to hear from Senator McGuire's panel, and then we will come back and do the expo fair and the networking. I just want to close by taking a few minutes to talk about how this conference came to be and why it's so important to have it now. We have been talking about it for a while, but it really has grown out of the COVID Economic Resiliency Consortium, which is a group of economic development professionals, business leaders, and people who just really care about what's happening in our economy. We started before the pandemic, about a week before the shutdown. So it wasn't before the pandemic, but about a week before the shutdown. And we used to meet every single day, 5 days a week, to talk about messaging and all of the information that was coming to businesses, just like a fire hose when the pandemic first started. We also identified things that were important to follow up with. And so we continue to meet 2 times a week, and some different subgroups have grown out of that. We have some COVID messaging groups, we have a housing group, and this summit really came out of those discussions. So I'm so grateful to the collaboration for everybody in those. But as I mentioned earlier, we have been talking about this regional conference for a few years. And given the activity over the past couple of years in our region, both good and bad, and we've had the pandemic, but we have a lot of economic opportunity coming up. And this time just seems really appropriate. So we're going to talk a lot about change and collaboration, because no matter what topic we're discussing, problems are best solved when we can do it together. And that includes bringing the larger community into the process to help them see that we are all changing together as well. And this is especially important to think about as we continue to wrestle with the impacts of COVID-19. People have been living under tremendous stress for years now. It's been a couple of years. And we have seen so many people who have tried to find comfort, or at least some kind of stability, by clinging strongly to their beliefs. Much like a tree or a plant will grow their roots deeper and deeper into the earth to find stability. But I prefer to look at the redwood trees that our region is known for as a guide on how to respond to these unpredictable times. Redwood tree survival doesn't come from digging deeper into the ground at all. It comes from connection. Redwood roots are not deep, but they're intertwined with the trees around them. They share nutrients, and redwoods are awe-inspiring for their longevity and their strength. And their longevity and strength comes from their community. So I guess if there's a message I would like you to take today, it's that. Remember that we are all stronger together. And now I am very excited to get this thing started with our first keynote speaker. And Julian Mocine McQueen is
hey, everybody.
Hey. He is a native son, sort of. He was born in Oakland, but grew up in Humboldt County. And so he is a founding member of the Million Person Project, and he is going to talk to us about how do we tell our story, and particularly how do we tell the story about our economy. So welcome, Julian, and thank you for a great presentation last night to our emerging leaders. And looking forward to hear what you have to say today.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Susan. And thank you. So thank you to Susan for all the hard work that it took to put this together. And also thank you, Clara. I've been a part of all of these, we've been working to figure out how this hop-in is going to work for all of us. So Clara, I think, has been doing a lot of the heavy lifting around that. I do not envy her, but I am grateful to her. And I also want to thank my friend Diana Rios, who was the one who reached out to me and asked if I might be interested. And I have to say, I jumped at the chance to be a part of this gathering, Future Forward, to be connecting with people from throughout the region that I love so dearly. So I want to thank all of you for being here today, kicking off your morning with me. I'm joining you live and direct from the Ramaytush Ohlone lands of San Francisco. I've been here for many years. So, Northern Cali, although I know some of you folks up there, you don't consider the Bay Area Northern Cali, but I'm not hearing it. So I'm Northern Cali through and through. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to get to share some of my story with you this morning and talk a little bit about story. And yes, last night had a really wonderful session with the Emerging Leaders Network subset of this body, of this network of people. And it was just really, really rich to get to hear some of the stories of the people that make up this network. And so got me even more fired up for today. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Ooh, I'm going to start my timer because I do like to talk. So hold on a minute. All right. So as Susan said, I'm kind of a native son of Humboldt. I'm from Oakland, California. And when I was young, my family moved to Humboldt County when I was about 4 years old in the early 80s. So my parents started out our family in Oakland. They met at Merritt College in Oakland, and I'm the middle of three boys. I have an older brother Marcos, younger brother Nathan, and my folks bought a house in Oakland, started raising the family. But in the early 80s, Oakland, as so many cities around the country, was experiencing a lot of unrest and a lot of uncertainty. Might sound familiar. For Oakland, it was the industries that had supported the Black working class community that we were in started to dry up, started to leave. The port reduced its workload. A lot of the companies. My dad, his first job when he moved to Oakland from Mississippi was at a GM plant. That plant closed down. Right. That was the type of thing that started happening. And then the early 80s, it got even worse. And my dad had a front row view to some of the changes that were taking place. He worked at the Oakland Police Department. He actually worked at a nonprofit affiliated with it. He was a liaison between the police department and the community. And he had a front row seat of seeing what was coming for West Oakland. And for him, it was really scary because he felt like the way that the policing was taking place wasn't helping the situation, it was exacerbating it. And so not only did he see this coming tide that became the crack epidemic, but he saw that the way that it was being navigated and managed was making it worse, not better. And so as a young father of three boys, he was like, he decided along with my mom that he wanted to move to somewhere else. And so where we ended up was Bridgeville, California. out in the cuts for real. So we went from West Oakland to Bridgeville. I imagine many of you can imagine that was a big change. We spent a few years in Fortuna as well, went to South Fortuna Elementary for a while, and then finally landed in Ferndale, where I was raised through high school. And I actually went to Eureka High. So shout out, go Loggers for life. I love the Loggers, always will. I was saying this last night, I still know the fight song. So if I lose my way today, I might just break out the nervous tick of just diving into that fight song. So who knows? So, you know, usually when I tell the story of moving from Oakland to Ferndale, if I tell that story publicly, I tell a story about cows and rivers and trees to help people understand that shift. But I know you all are all familiar with that throughout the North Coast. Thank you, Kristen, go Loggers, shout out. So you all are familiar with that, but it's those cows and those trees and those rivers. That's where we made our home. And my childhood, though, was a back and forth. My family would often go back to Oakland, back to West Oakland. We visit family, my Uncle Duck and my cousins Bert and Nayland lived on 32nd and West, and we'd go stay with them. And it was great for us because we were these kids living in the country, but man, we were so proud to be from Oakland. Now, granted, as we grew older, we knew less and less about Oakland and more about Humboldt County, but we loved going down there, and our cousins would show us what it was all about, what it was like to be in the city, what that meant. And we would be playing football on the concrete and being like, how do you all do this? But what was really exciting for me was we could walk to the corner store and get ourselves a candy bar on our own. You know, that was not possible living out on Grizzly Bluff Road where it was 6 miles to the closest store. So we loved that city lifestyle. And then, of course, Bert and Nayland would jump in the car and come stay with our family for a couple weeks during the summer. And we'd get to show them the riches of Humboldt County. And we take them to the river and teach them how to, they would go swimming outside of a pool for the first time. And we get to experience their shrieks of terror at the possibility of fish biting them to shrieks of delight as they learn how to jump off the largest rock we could find and into the big swimming holes. And we make dirt bike ramps and all the rest of the things you can do in the country. And it was interesting, though, because when we were back in Oakland, my parents, we would hear them talking about missing Oakland and missing the community there. And, wishing that they had been able to hold on to that house and they didn't have to sell that house in order to buy our house in Ferndale. And, boy, if we could come back and forth and all of these things. And so we asked, well, why, if you love Oakland so much, why did we leave? And my dad, in a sentence, what he would share with us and what he will say to this day, if you talk to him, he said, I wanted you to be in a place where kids could be kids as long as they need to be. I wanted you to be in a place where I felt like you all could just be kids as long as you needed to be kids. And, it was a lot of years that he said that we kind of got it, but we didn't get it entirely. We understood some of the things at play and some of the ways of the world and the state of the world, and we saw the news, but it really came home when I was 19, and my cousins that I shared, Bert and Nayland, they were 16 and 18 at the time. I was still in Humboldt County, and, we got a phone call, and I will never forget my dad picking up that phone and hearing him say, what, just exasperated. And what happened is that they had tried in getting caught up with some older cat that was on the block. They tried to rob a jewelry store, and they had guns and masks and the rest. And by the grace of God, they were not hurt. Nobody was hurt in this ridiculous caper, but they were both caught, and they were sentenced to 14 and 17 years in the state adult penitentiaries of California. And so these are two young men, boys at the time, along with myself, that were looking at what college are you going to? Are you going to play ball or not? What are you trying to do next, right? We were on these paths together. We loved them and they loved us, and we had a vision for our futures, and theirs came to a close. Their youth came to an end right then. And that's when I learned truly what my dad meant, what he meant by that. I wanted you to be in a place where kids could be kids. And for my family, Humboldt provided that for my family. That allowed me and my brothers to just be kids as long as we need to be. And as I grew older, I always thought it was the trees and the rivers and maybe the cows a little bit and just the general small towniness. And I knew that was some of it, but it was also my family and friends. And that was part of it. But it was more because I realize now that communities where kids can be kids is not a place. It's a shared commitment that a community makes to each other and to itself. And that's a really important part of it. So for Humboldt, there was that shared commitment that surrounded me. So it was not only my friends and family, it was my teachers, it was our neighbors, the folks that picked me up when I was walking home from school. down Grizzly Bluff Road. It was the business owners downtown who you could still put money on the books and walk out with food without putting any money down, right? It was the volunteer football coaches, shout out to Frank Cook, that created that sense of community and that place where kids can be kids. And that was Humboldt County for me, the North Coast for me. That was it for me. But unfortunately, it's not that for everyone. It wasn't that for every kid that was surrounding me. It wasn't a place where they felt like they could just be a kid. And it's still not that place for everyone today. And that's why it takes that commitment from all of us. For too many people throughout Northern California or Oakland or cities anywhere, they don't feel that support. They don't get to experience that sense of safety and comfort that I got to experience. And that's why we have to turn to each other. It takes a commitment time and again from all of us to help make the communities we live in those places for every kid and for every person, where you can feel supported and you feel that sense of possibility. And so that's why I was so excited to join you all today, because you all are leaders in these communities, from Mendocino to Humboldt County to Del Norte County, throughout the region. You all are leaders of this place that I love so much, and you have the ability to create change, and you have an outsized amount of influence, particularly when you are pointing in the same direction, particularly when you are working together. So this is a place where that shared commitment can make these regions a place where kids can be kids as long as they need to be, for more and more people and more often. Because you are the owners of the store where those kids get to go in and feel that little taste of freedom of getting their own candy bar for the first time, right? You're the keepers of the culture throughout this region. You're the ones who are, I've been flabbergasted as I've gone back and visited my home over the last 10, 15 years, and particularly at the explosion of the incredible art throughout the community. And, you know, the thriving Arts Alive, and obviously pandemic, blah, 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 all of that stuff. But boy, it's rocking. And you move around Eureka and it's just incredible, the public art that is there now. You are the people that are running those bookstores, that are holding the region's history on the shelves of those bookstores, that are lifting up local authors as they try to get their voice out. You're the people that are helping people find homes in an always challenging California real estate market, helping people put those pieces together, right? Helping people sell their homes. You're the people that are running the health clinics, the child care centers, the after school programs, the teen centers, those places where kids actually just get to be themselves. You are the people that are holding that piece of the puzzle, and they're telling that story. And your work is the work that makes these places home for so many. It's not just what you do, but it's how you do it. And I know this because you did it for me, and you did it for my brothers, and you did it for so many people that I came up with, and you continue to do it. And we're talking about story today, and because you all are you're key authors of the story of this region, in your actions, in your commitment to your towns, to the region itself, to each other, you continue to create a powerful story of resilience, of creativity, of perseverance, and pride. That's what you do day in and day out. And it's not easy. It requires you to show up fully in who you are, with honesty and integrity. It requires you to be clear about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and being able to share that with those around you so that they can share in your vision. And if you're like me, it can feel hard sometimes. And I know it can. I still have so many people that I love and care about up north, and I talk about it. And, there's a narrative of things falling apart. And it's a narrative that I heard when I was a kid too. So I want to be clear about that. These narratives have a way of persisting. And now when I was up there, it's the good old days. So that's just an aside. But I'm an eternal optimist. And but these past few years have even tested my capacity around that. But we have to continue to write that story together. We have to continue to believe in what's possible together. And that's a collective story. But what I want to share with you today is that collective story relies on your individual story. Your ability to create that story together starts with you. What are people seeing in your story? Because when we talk about story is a fractal. So your story becomes your family story, becomes your neighborhood story, becomes your town story, becomes the region story, becomes our world story. So if you hope to author a powerful story and a prosperous story for the region, you have to tap into the power of your story. What are you trying to create and why? And how can you help people understand that? So we're going to be talking more about that today because, like it or not, y'all are leaders, right? You are leaders, and you're self-identified leaders stepping into this Future Forward regional summit, right? You're self-identified as wanting to be a part of this collective change. And so people are looking at you. Sometimes they're looking at you for guidance. Sometimes they're looking at you for advice, but sometimes they're just looking to see what can be done. They're trying to see what can be done by somebody that, that shares a context with them. They want to know if you can start over after a failed business, if you can grow something out of nothing with a little help, with some luck, right? With some support. If you can transition from the black market to the open market and do it safely in a way that supports you and the people around you. If you can recover and lapse and recover again and find a new way forward. If you can find and create and work and create a business that is financially sustainable, but that also honors the earth and is sustainable for all of us around you. If you can right past wrongs and tell a new story for the region, for the city. I was struck by the project that I just learned about in a very serendipitous way, but the Dishgamu Humboldt project, right? This tragic chapter that is in Humboldt's history, the massacre at Tuluwat Island, which was replicated throughout this country a million times over. But yet the Wiyot people persist and remain and thrive and survive. And not only that, are showing incredible leadership on behalf of the entire region, on behalf of the county, charting a new course, creating a new partnership with Co-op Humboldt to create a new vision, to create a new thriving center in Eureka and in the county. Wow, that is the story that I want to be a part of. That is a story that so many people need to hear, whether it's in Humboldt County or otherwise. And you all hold those stories. And those stories, they create the mosaic that is the incredible story of this region, right? And it's going to remain the story of this region. And in this day, there's a lot of uncertainty. Of course, we've already talked about it once this morning, but the pandemic and all of that rot, but also broad economic shifts and changes that we're experiencing throughout the country and throughout the world. The change, particularly in that region of, cannabis industry going legal and, the opportunity there, but the tremendous challenges for so many people throughout the region to make that shift. All of those things are real. I know I live in San Francisco, and a lot of our headlines have to do with houseless people, people struggling with homelessness, mental health issues. I know those are replicated up and down the coast. So all of that's real. But you've been through uncertainty before. In preparing for today, I knew that, this is a real narrative that has been part of this region for a long time, right? The logging industry, the fishing industry, the farming industry. I read that the logging industry in the late 50s and early 60s accounted for almost 1 out of every 2 jobs in the economy, right? Almost 1 out of every 2, and it made up a bigger piece of the economy than the rest of the economy combined. And most of the rest of that economy was farming and fishing. And now those industries make up about 2.5%. And they're good jobs. A lot of those are really good jobs, but there's very few of them. And I mention that because if you had told those men and women that that was the state of that industry at this point in time, then they would have said, well, then that region is a ghost town. That region is deserted. That region has withered on the vine and it is no more. What else could you think, right? But that's not the case. That is absolutely not the case. And in fact, the region's grown and continues to grow. And it's a vibrant community, and it's a thriving community, and it's a place where people are born, where people choose to stay, where people move, where people raise their families, where people start their businesses and get after their dreams. It is a really special part of the world, and it continues to move forward, and it continues to grow and evolve. And people continue to innovate in this place. So that's the story. That's the story of this region. It's one of evolution, and it's one of innovation, and it's one of perseverance. And so will you tell your part of that story? Will you share your vision of what's possible in the region? Will you share the values that bring you to your business, to your service organization, that you raise your family with, that you bring to the interactions with your children in school, whatever it might be? Are you willing to share that part of your story? Because that's what needed. And so this 2-day conference it presents a tremendous opportunity to share your story. So my ask of you today is to really lean into that, to lean in with an open heart and open ears to hear the stories of others, to see if you can have an ear towards what is moving people, why they're doing what they're doing, how they're doing it. And if you can lean into sharing your story, and not just your stories of triumph, but the struggles that got you to where you are, the struggles that you're in right now. We talk a lot in my work about messages in the middle. You know, we love stories where it's all wrapped up in a bow, and I went here in that hero's journey, right? Hey, sometimes we're in the middle of that journey, and that's an important story to share as well. And in sharing that story, you might find some clarity and a breakthrough for yourself, but you also might offer some hope to someone else. So if you can lean into that this weekend, you can strengthen the bonds amongst you that will allow for the collaboration that you need, that will allow for a shared vision of prosperity, and that ultimately together you can influence this story of the region in really profound ways. So are you willing to allow your voice to be a part of that story, to trust that your voice matters? It's a story that continues to evolve and change, but ultimately it's an incredible story of a really special corner of the world that has a lot of trees and a lot of cows and rivers and some really good people. And it's one that has been and will continue to be. And if we do our work together, if we lean into our story, if we lean into our sense of hope and into our sense of responsibility to each other and for each other, it will continue to be a place where kids can be kids as long as they need to be. So that's what I wanted to say today. And thank you for the opportunity to say it. I'm so grateful to be here with you. And in the spirit of wanting to support you all in your story sharing and how you share the story of this region, how you share your story with each other, I also want to take a moment to share a little bit about our work and some of the tools that we support people to use to harness the power of their story. So I'm going to take a drink of water real quick, and then I'll get into it. And I want to say that I have my eye on the chat. So if you have any questions or thoughts or anything to offer, then I'm absolutely open to that. And then we'll get into it. So in your gift bag, I believe you have a copy of this little book. It's called How Your Story Sets You Free. And it's a book that myself and my partner, who helped me to create the Million Person Project, wrote. And it's a little book that is designed to help you capture the power of your story. And really, it has some inspiration, but a lot of tools and resources that you can dive into to pull apart your story and really understand what to share and how to share it. And so I want to share some of what's in that book with you now. Greg, thank you. I'll say hi to Pops. All right, Dad. My dad is Ron, so I'll tell Greg Foster said, hey, I love it. Yeah, my mom and dad are still up there. So let me share a little bit about the Million Person Project, and then I'm going to share my screen, and we can get into some of what I want to share with you today. So the Million Person Project started 10 years ago this upcoming Saturday. So happy birthday, Million Person Project, and it came out of the work of Heather and myself. We were both working at environmental and social justice nonprofits in the Bay Area. They were national and international in scope. And and there were two sides of the coin that really inspired us to start this. And I want to share it with you because it'll give you a sense of what to expect. Both of our nonprofits were led by people who were really powerful storytellers. So I worked at a place called Green for All, and the leader of that organization, who's a mentor and a friend of mine, is Van Jones, who now is like a big shot CNN guy, and also still runs a lot of really powerful organizations working for justice, particularly working to address issues in the justice system, and still working on issues of the green economy, which is what Green for All did. So Van was a really incredible storyteller, and he used story as a way to help people understand their place in what we were trying to do. And he did it in a way that allowed the organization and the broader movement that we were part of to explode. And so green jobs is a phrase that we use a lot now, right, in the green economy. That was not the case. When Green for All started, in the precursor of Green for All about 05, 06, 07, those were not phrases people used. But it wasn't just Van, it was a lot of people, but Van played a huge role in allowing that idea and that concept and that vision to explode. So I had a front row seat to seeing the power of story. When somebody was willing to step into their vulnerability and tell a powerful story, I had a front row seat to see what was possible in that. And I was fortunate enough to be mentored by Van on story for many years, and I'm so grateful for that. And that was one part of the story. Heather's, the leader of Heather's organization, had a very different style, very different look, but was really cool and a really great storyteller in his own right as well. But the flip side of the coin is that in our work, we would go to conferences like this, and we would go to the UN climate conference in Copenhagen, in South Africa, et cetera, around the country. And it was really great. And we got to meet people. And oftentimes you'd meet people in those, you know, in the informal spaces. You'd run into them at the hotel bar and say, oh, you're at the same place. What's up? Let's talk. And you'd have a drink, and you get to know people, right? And you get to hear their story, understand what they're about, understand their motivations and their passions. But what we noticed is that too often, the next day when we decided to go to their panel at this workshop, all of that was gone. All of the spirit and energy, all of the humanness was gone. And we were left with the program notes and the facts and the figures and the sky is falling and we have to take action on climate. And I say that a little bit facetiously, but that's important stuff. I'm not saying that stuff is not important. But when it's devoid of the story, when it's devoid of the humanness, of the passion behind it, of the values behind it, it lacks power and it lacks an ability to connect. And so a lot of times we would know somebody was incredibly powerful, had a huge amount of passion, but it would not translate from the stage. And so we felt like, maybe there's something we can do to help. And so we started to work on the Million Person Project and really commit ourselves full time to helping leaders of all stripes, doing work in all different contexts, to tap into the power of their personal narrative. And so that's the work that we do. We do it one-on-one coaching. We do it in groups. We do it in places like this. And I'm about to do it right now. So I'm going to share something, just my screen for a little bit. I have a really short PowerPoint, and we're not going to get into it too much today. I just wanted to give you a little taste, and I wanted to leave you with some tools. And again, what you might be able to see and understand in the book that you have. So let me see. Hopefully you can see my screen. Can I just get an affirmation in the chat that you can see this thing that says Million Person Project? Whoopie whoop. Or is it dragged off to the side? I'm hoping it's just. Yes. Thank you, Clara, as always, to the rescue. Okay. So what I want to share with you is what is at the heart of the work that we do. There are a lot of different ways to tell story, and we work with people in a lot of different ways, but this is really the core way that we do it. This is called the public narrative. And it's a story in 3 parts. And I wanted to share with you in particular because it's open source. So we are part of this network. You see at the bottom, Marshall Gantz, really cool old school organizer. And now he's a lecturer at Harvard. He's an old white dude with a big walrus mustache, I think they call it. And it's just fantastic. And he's a really sharp organizer, worked with the farm workers here in California with Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. Worked in Chicago for a lot of years, was one of the founding members of SNCC in the 60s down in the South, so the civil rights movement. So really chops. And he codified this technique. And I say codified because I think ultimately this is a very natural way of speaking, but he broke it out in a way that is really wonderful and easy to understand. And it's a story in 3 parts. It's the story of self, the story of us, and the story of now. And I'll share this with you all after the fact. So you can feel free to take notes, but also you don't have to. So I'm just going to break these down a little bit, and then we're going to do one quick exercise, and I'm hoping we can share in the chat a little bit with this exercise, and then we'll do some questions. So the story of self. Essentially, the story of self is what the story of self says is this is who I am, what I care about, and why. This is why I do what I do. This is who I am, what I care about, and why. This is why I do what I do. Okay? This is your opportunity to say, hey, here I am. And here's how I got here, right? So it includes core values that define your leadership. And it also includes the life experiences that have shaped those values. And so this is about storytelling. We don't want you to just say, hey, I really care about family, right? Well, let us hear why. Let us hear how. How did you come to, what does that mean to you individually? So it includes those life experiences. And it's a good story. So it's told using imagery and specific details, and it includes emotion. So that story itself is a journey. You're taking us on a journey of the values that you hold, that define you, and that give us some insight into how you operate in the world and what you care about in the world. So that might be related to the business that you run. It might be related to how you run the business. Sometimes when I talk about this and somebody's like, well, hey, I run a hardware store. I don't know the values behind it. Yeah, well, how do you run it, right? How do you show up? What is your commitment to the people that come in there every day? How do you try to operate with the people that you work with on, whether it's your customers or the people that you source your goods from, right? How do you show up with the community and at community events, right? All of that is based in your values. So it doesn't matter the business you run. It's not just the business you run or the work that you do, but it's how you do it. So that's the story of self. But this isn't just a story about you. This is a story about you in relationship with your community, in relationship with the people around you, in relationship with the people that you want to connect with and be a part of. And that's the story of us. So you share your values in your story of self, but you move to a story that includes not just you, but the people around you, the people that you want to connect with. Your audience is one way we refer to it. But so how the values that led to your leadership are connected to the audience, your audience's values, right? A description of what the audience has already accomplished, what past actions demonstrate their values to you, and why you believe they're an important part of your work or your campaign. So this is where you take it and make a story about I, and you transfer it to be a story about we. I care about these things, and I know you do too, and here's how I know. Let me tell you. Van used to talk about it as tell them who they are, call people to their higher self, help people to see themselves in the possibility of who they are and who they can be. And that's the story of us. And then finally, this technique is about moving people to action. So that's the story of now. The story of now says why it's important to take action, what's at stake, right? An urgent need for action. People are busy, they have a lot going on. If you wanted somebody to join you in whatever it is your vision is, what you're trying to create, we have to make a case for not only why it's important, but why there's some urgency to take action. So people say, okay, I'm actually not going to watch Monday Night Football because I'm going to that meeting this week, because I'm committed to supporting that, right? So that's, you create a sense of urgency. What's the state of the world? What's the state of the of whatever it is you're talking about? What's at stake if you don't take action? But you don't want to leave them there. You really want to bring them to a place of hope and possibility and a vision for what's possible. So what can be achieved together? What's a vision for the future? And you want to make sure there's an ask in there. And so I really talk about landing with a vision for the future, really. Landing in that place, bringing people to a place of possibility where they see themselves in the solution, but they also see what you can create together. And so that's the story of self, the story of us, and the story of now. And I want to invite you now to put some questions. If you have questions about this or any feedback or thoughts, I'm not sure. I don't think we can do the mic, right? Is that right? Or can we? But if not, let's put it. We can put that in the chat, and I'll try to keep an eye on it. And yeah, so I'm going to keep going, but I want to encourage you to, if there's any questions about this story of self, us now, to please put them there. So this is a really powerful way that you can organize your thoughts and your stories, and it's based on a couple things. Now, it's based on values, right? That story of self starts with values. The other thing that's really important to base this on is truth. This is not a technique that is effective if you don't mean what you say. You have to lean into your vulnerability and authenticity. You have to explore your own story and really try to understand what it is that moves you and be willing to share it. And not only what it is that moves you and what you care about, but how you got there, a little bit of how you got there. Help people see that journey. This is particularly important for people like you all who are in leadership roles in your organizations and throughout the community at large. Because as people see you and interact with you, we have a tendency to create separation. Well, I couldn't do that because I'm not them. They're special, and that's why they're a leader, and therefore I can't do it. But as you all know, we've all been on our journeys, right? And we all have something to offer, but we're all just humans ultimately at the end of the day. And so part of the way this story, kind of offers power is allowing people to see themselves in your story and recognize, like, oh, there were some challenges there. There were some choices made. It wasn't always like this. They didn't always understand this. They didn't always do this or move in this way. And so that's a big part of the power of this story. So that's the story of self-us. Now, let me go back and see what we have. New things every day. Cool. Okay. So I think what I'll do is we have about 10 minutes here. Let me just offer this one piece here. So as I said, stories are a powerful vehicle to express your values. So I want you all to just write. We're going to take just a few minutes here. And what I'd like to do is have you all look at this. This is one of the exercises that we use and that I wanted to leave you with that might help you to parse out what story you might share as it relates to your work and as it relates to your role in the community and in this network. So on the left here, you see we have what we mean by values. This is our definition. a person's principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment of what is important in life. And on the right are 3 questions that I just want to leave you with. So feel free to capture these. And again, this is recorded, and I'll share this PowerPoint. But I want to see if you want to take a moment to answer this for yourself. So what is a core value that you hold? When you do that, you're looking at a word or a short phrase. And I got to do this last night with the Emerging Leaders Network, and it was really a fun process. So I wanted to offer it to you all this morning more broadly. So what is a core value that you hold? That's just a short order phrase. But then how do you find some clarity around what you mean there? Well, this is how you do that. How is it made real in the world by your work and or actions? So this is just a little bit of free write. Hey, I care about honesty. Well, how would one know that if they saw you, if they met you, right? How is that made real in the world by what you do? And again, that might be the work that you do, right? If you care about, kids, right? If you care about kids, well, then maybe you work at the Boys and Girls Club or after school program, and there's a real direct link there. But it also might be, again, in how you work. So in your work or actions, and think outside of work with your family. How does that value show up with your family, with your friends, in community? And then why is it important to live this value? So an opportunity to just again, zero in on why does that matter to you? And then here's where the story comes in. And this is how you might start to parse out what story to share. So capturing a moment when you became more aware of or committed to this value in your life. So think back. Who is it that helped you to understand why that value mattered? Who is it to help you understand, the power of perseverance? Who showed that to you, right? Maybe they taught you that. Maybe they sat you down and said, hey, or maybe it was the way that they acted and you witnessed and you said, wow, okay, that's how I want to be. For some people, it's an absence of that. A lot of people, we all have moments in our life that are not strong. All of us have our own traumas. Some have a lot. Some have very little stability, right? And so maybe it's the absence of that stability that is why you're so committed to stability for your family, right? So those are the types of things that you might want to think about that help people understand the values that you're trying to bring to the spaces that you move in. So I wanted to offer that to you all today to just play around with. So I'm hoping that you can capture that. And I would love to see if there is anybody who wants to just offer in the chat a little something that they might have come up with that around this, just a word or a sentence or two about the values that you're holding and how they show up, or the values and how you got them. And I also I think that's my last slide here. Yeah, okay, that's my last slide. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and stop my slide here and come back. So yeah, anything you want to put in the chat there is welcome. So thank you, Michael. I believe it's important, especially in a small community, to show up, pitch in as an equal, and especially to do what you say you're going to do. Really awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Michael. And so then the question is, why? How? A couple ways to look at that. Is there a story you might share where that was either you didn't do that and you failed? I mean, gosh, I have to tell you, I have a memory from high school where I was an ASB president at Eureka High, and I totally fell flat on my face in my responsibilities for this one event. And boy, it still to this day burns me, and I wish I had it back, right? That's an example of where you even just sharing that small thing really triggered something in me that I'm like, oh yeah, he's right about that. I know because I failed before. So Michael, if you were thinking about, if you were sharing a story that you wanted people to understand more fully that value, you might think of a place and ways in which you saw that either really come through and share that, or ways in which that was failed, whether it was you or somebody else or something you were a part of. Ronald says, social justice, I work to change social and economic structures that diminish and limit our humanity. From an early age, I identified with the underdog and marginalized and stood with them in their fight for dignity and justice. So that's really great, Ronald. So if we're thinking about story, bring us to a moment where we could see that in you, where we could understand that in you. And again, maybe it's a moment where you wished you had stood up and said something and didn't, and that stuck with you. That can be really powerful. I know I have those stories as well. Being your true self along with passion. We got a lot coming in now. I love it. Yeah, bring your true self along with passion for what you are doing. Great. Thank you, Jesse. I love it. Always show respect to people and treat them with dignity, working with people with disabilities. Yes. So another one where you can talk about, bringing in how you came to understand that. And another side of that is what's possible when you do that. And that one really resonates with me. I think about my parents and how I've seen them operate in the community. I'm so proud of the way that they've shown up time and again for people who others weren't showing up for. it influences me daily in terms of how I see people and how I interact with them, and how I check myself when I get in a place of judgment. So thank you for even allowing me to have that memory, Michael. Finding common ground and focusing on our commonalities rather than differences. I think that's so important. I think that's particularly important in the region. There are so many divergent views in that little neck of the woods, right? But there's so much common ground, and it's one of the great gifts that place gave me growing up, having such a different context that I came from Oakland, moving to the country, and growing up with people that had such different views than I had, and recognizing that those views sometimes were offensive to me, but the people weren't, and having to accept the absolute reality that, like, that guy, and forgive me, this may go against some of you, but that guy, I'll just tell you my story. That guy has a Rush sticker, right? A Rush Limbaugh sticker, who in my household was persona non grata, right? But that person has also always done right by my family. They've always supported us when we needed it. They always brought that tractor over and helped till up the land when we asked them, right? So that's the type of thing that Humboldt taught me, is that those commonalities can often be more important than those differences, even though it doesn't feel like it sometimes. And more and more these days, I have to hold on to that to what I learned in Humboldt County because of that. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because it brought me right back. So I love what I'm seeing. I encourage you all to continue to use this chat to change. I don't want to run us over time here, and we're coming up on it. If there are any questions, I'd be excited and happy to answer those. But I'm seeing some beautiful sharing of values here, and I want to thank you for sharing what you're sharing here and sharing it with each other. My encouragement to you, to all of you, is to, again, lean in to this powerful sharing. Lean in to revealing some of what moves you, not just what you do. We get in these spaces, these professional spaces, and we want to just share what we do. And we feel like there's this sense of urgency. If you don't understand what I do, then how are we going to connect? And then I got to call you, and we got to make this thing happen, right? Slow down. Allow yourself to show up in your full humanity and share some of that, and know that that's where that connection can come from. And it's through that connection that you can build together, that you can grow together, that you can chart a shared course together. And this 2 days offers a really rare opportunity for that, particularly in this day and age. And with that, I want to just again thank the organizers, Susan and Clara and Diana and the others that helped make this happen. I want to thank you all so much for giving this opportunity. And I did have an opportunity to kind of see who makes up and the businesses and the organizations and entities that make up this network. And I want to thank you all for your work. I want to thank you all for your commitment to the region, to Northern California. It is my home. I love Oakland to death, but Humboldt County is my home. And so it is a true gift to me to get to be here this morning. I want to thank you for it, and have a great rest of your time.
Thank you so much, Julian. I loved hearing you talk about everything that you talked about, but something that I really thought about is that concept that it's not personal, it's business. And if you've ever owned a business or interacted with a business, sometimes that could be incredibly personal. Mm-hmm. So really realizing that there's not some other box that we put business, economic development, governing in that is removed from who we are and who our core values are.
That's
so
right.
Thank you for reminding us about that.
Absolutely. And I want to say one last thing, which somebody pointed out. So thank you for pointing out, because I know there's a recording. So I was modeling that technique as I was speaking. And I was modeling it in the technique itself, and I was modeling what I said about it being real and me meaning every word of it. So I'll leave you with that, so folks can, if you want to go back and parse it out, you can.
Well, I am so glad that you continue to be a part of this community. We are very lucky to have you, not just as a speaker, but as a Humboldtian and a part of the Redwood Coast. So thank you so much, and continue the good work. And I hope you get to see some of the other stuff that's going on.
Okay, right. All right, and go Loggers. See those Mustangs too, Ferndale Mustangs. That's the junior high, just for those who are like, wait. Okay, much love, y'all. Have a great rest of your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So next up, and I think that it's great to start this whole event by thinking about storytelling and how do we talk to each other and what is the story we're telling, because as we go through the whole rest of the conference and so we're getting information, And it makes it easier to talk about it, and it makes it more compelling to talk about it with folks when we can frame it as a story that is really core to who we are. So thank you again. And next, I am excited to bring up a couple of speakers from California Forward. And they're going to talk about the importance of working together as a region. And we've got some great kind of data capturing. So first, I want to introduce Ish Herrerra. He is the Director of Regional Stewardship for California Forward. When I first met Ish, we were fellows together in the California Stewardship Network. And then he just, like a rocket, next thing you know, he was leading all of this stuff with California Forward, which is a great program that he will tell you about. And then he is also joined by Patrick Atwater, who is their resident data nerd. I don't know if he would describe himself that way, but he is the senior research analyst for California Forward. He's been working on a project called the California Dream Index. And something that comes up in a lot of our conversations is, how do we really genuinely measure whether our economy is doing well? It used to be that you would just point to some unemployment figures and say, that's our best tracking mechanism. But really, the quality of life and the ability to have a good quality of life is so important. And so he is going to talk about that. So I will start with Ish Herrerra. And Ish, welcome. It is so good to see you. It's great to see you, Patrick. I'm going to now get off the stage and let you all take over.
Great. Thank you, Susan. And am I coming across clear with the audio? Great. Well, thank you so much, Susan, for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be with you all in this space, even if it is virtual. We definitely are looking forward to doing partnerships like this with you all in the future in person. I want to take the first 20 minutes or so to not just introduce the organization and myself, but to tell you about a great opportunity that's making its way to the various regions of California, including the Redwood Coast. And we're excited to be following these developments on your behalf, and we definitely want to share what we know thus far and make sure that you all are positioned to take advantage of this opportunity to continue the great work that you all are doing as a region. And once I'm finished, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Patrick, who's going to walk you through the latest and greatest on the California Dream Index, which is the tool that we use for measuring impact and holding ourselves accountable for the work that we support here in the state and the different regions of California. So I'm going to share my screen and just walk us through a few slides, and then I think once I'm concluded, we can definitely take some questions. And I'll do my best to answer them, and then we'll turn it over to Patrick. So bear with me here in a second. Okay. All right. So first off, who are we? Who are we as an organization? And I'll start off by reintroducing myself. I'm Ismael Herrerra, as my friend and colleague Susan introduced me. I also go by Ish, so either one of those two options will work just fine. I am the Director of Regional Stewardship for California Forward, and there's my contact information. That's the best way to get a hold of me. That's my personal cell phone number and my organizational email, which are the two best ways of answering any questions you may have. So look forward to hearing from you all post-event as some of these things that I'm presenting on develop. Little brief background on who we are as an organization, in case this is the first time you're hearing of us. You're not as familiar with California Forward or the work that we do. We've been around for well over a decade, doing a lot of great work on behalf of the state and not just the regions around improving the way that government functions and making sure it's accountable to the various regions of the state and its populations. But, in most recent years, we've been working a lot closer with our region organizations in every corner of California related to inclusive and sustainable growth that really benefits all. And we've done this in large part through the alliance that we have with the California Stewardship Network, which are a group of organizations located throughout the state that work with us to advance a portfolio of collective action that reflects many of the priorities that are found within your region and mutual priorities that transcend regional and county boundaries.
Ish, before you go on, we're not seeing what you're seeing on your screen. So there are two things that you'll want to do down at the bottom right hand of your PowerPoint. You'll want to be into the reading mode, and then you'll want to go into the slideshow.
My apologies. Let me.
I just wanted to catch you before we got too much further. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to try that again. Sorry. How's that?
It's so down. Okay, so now you're in reading mode. Now you need to put it on slideshow or.
Okay, is that not showing up yet?
No, it's still just your whole thing.
Okay, my apologies.
It's a little bit.
Let me try that. All right, let's try this again. Okay. And how is that?
Well, I see that you're moving it down there. Oh yeah, we're on a different slide. See, try to move forward and backwards. Are you moving your slides?
I am.
Okay, it's not working at all.
You can see the presentation. I'm sorry.
We could see the presentation with the slides on the side, so it's not in presentation mode.
Okay. My apologies. It's showing as presentation mode on my end. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I can definitely share this PowerPoint slides as we're done with the event, and if it's okay, I can just proceed this way if that works.
That's fine with me as long as you're comfortable with it and and you're clear about what the group is seeing. So thank you. I'll get out of your way now.
No worries. I'll try it one more time, and then we'll just proceed as technology permits us to. So let me just try it one more time just to double check. All right. Hopefully that's showing up okay. No, I see it's still showing up the way you're seeing it. So I'm gonna do my best to walk us through this. So let me just jump back into the content then. The the organization has been carrying out this work throughout the regions, some strong partnership. We have a big event coming up in a few weeks. That is our annual event that really captures all the work and the momentum that occurs during the calendar year. And we gather, in a different place, different region of California once a year to provide updates on the work that's taking place, the progress, and to invite others to plug into the efforts moving into the following calendar year. And so that event's coming up on November 9th and 10th. It'll be in Monterey this year. It's our 10th annual California Economic Summit. We definitely welcome all of you from the Redwood Coast to join us at that event. It is a hybrid event. Most of the programming will be taking place in person in Monterey, but there is the opportunity to join virtually for the plenary sessions that'll be on the main stage. And then I won't talk too much about the California Dream Index because my colleague Patrick will cover that in depth today. But just know it's one of our new tools for complementing all the work that we do. It's the way to provide the evidence to measure the impact that we hope is taking place on the ground. And then lastly, we do have a sister organization, which is our California Action Fund that we use to conduct formal advocacy and lobbying activities in Sacramento and elsewhere. this is kind of how it all comes together. It's what we call our internal circle of life. And it's really the ecosystem that feeds off of one another to create this platform for equitable and sustainable growth in every region of California. It starts with the regions like yours in the Redwood Coast, really feeding in from regions up perspective, the policy and the practices that we elevate at a state level to not just legislators, but philanthropists and other stakeholders who have a vested interest in enhancing the quality of life in all corners of California for all people. We obviously use a few vehicles to advance that collective action, our action fund, and then we, with Patrick's help, we measure our work with the California Dream Index, and it all is a continuous circle of feeding off of one another. Here is where our California Stewardship Network members currently reside, and you'll see that there's a pinwheel up there in your region, the Redwood Coast. Our point of contact up there for much of the California Stewardship Network's existence has been Kathy Moxon with Redwood Coast Rural Action. She's been a great leader on all your behalf, and has stayed connected to our network, and is the person who is helping relay information to and from your region to inform what we do collectively across the state. We've added, I'll share that, prior to my arrival at California Forward, most of these little pinwheels were located in the coastal centers of the state. Where we take a lot of pride in having added more inland and rural dots on this map to make sure that we're providing coverage to as many regions of California. And we still have some work to do in making sure we identify organizations that are playing that civic intermediary role on behalf of a broader region that in most cases transcends more than one county. But you'll see there that we've, and we'll talk about this in a second, but our priorities for 2021, we had a lot of great victories this year around broadband, around wildfires, with funding that has become available legislatively, the advancement of the work on pipeline development for jobs of the future, and then what I'm focusing on today, the tremendous win on creating opportunities for further inclusive economic development work in different regions of the state. And so know that you're at the table, you're represented in this statewide network that influences decision makers here in California. This is kind of how our policy calendar and process operates. We start in January and February, the first quarter of the year. We every January we launch and we circulate what we call our roadmap for shared prosperity. It kind of outlines our agenda for the year as an organization, and in partnership with our regional organizations through the California Stewardship Network. And then second quarter of the year, we launch into really the meat and potatoes of our work with our various policy work groups, who then continue to advance the proposals and the recommendations for the coalition moving into quarter three. And then we really organize ourselves around bringing it all together to the summit every year. So you can see how it's all sequential. It's all part of the ecosystem that we help facilitate. And we take we not just lead, but we collaborate. We support others that help us do the work. Our role looks different in different parts of the states. Agenda setting, statutory change, or helping with actual implementation. And we have examples of all of that. But this is essentially how it functions during the calendar year. Some of the work groups that we focus on that'll be showcased at this year's event, and where a lot of the work has been happening in 2021, are the 6 that you see there. And so, if any of these stand out to you, if any of these are spaces where you're doing work on behalf of your organization, on behalf of your community, and you want to get plugged into a broader statewide coalition that's rolling up its sleeves, influencing policy investments and also sharing the best practices among practitioners, that's what these work groups are. At any point you want to become more involved with these, do reach out to me or any of my colleagues at the organization, and we can put you in touch with the right people who are leading these work groups that are really informed from the regions up. At the summit this year, here's some of the areas that are a priority for us. Obviously, a lot to say on economic development that's equitable and sustainable and resilient. A lot going on, obviously, with the wildfire issues across the state and the various regions of California. There'll be a lot of time dedicated to the issue of broadband as well. We have a portion of the program this year at Monterey that'll focus on that. And then, we continue to advocate for the promotion of home ownership as a way to create wealth in communities among families, particularly those who have been underserved or unserved. We see this as a path for prosperity. And so we continue to advocate on that issue. Before I transition to this opportunity that I came to flag for you and talk to you about, I want to just quickly talk about our 2 steward leadership pipeline programs. Part of the principles and the philosophy that the organization and most of our partners subscribe to is this idea of being civic steward leaders, that our personal agendas should not come at the expense of the broader agenda, the broader good of the community. And so that stewardship mentality is something that we try to instill in the work that we do, keeping in mind solutions that have a triple bottom line possibility, which can provide answers for the economy, the environment, and for equity. And so those 3 E's are very central to our philosophy of civic stewardship. And so we have a couple pipeline programs which try to groom and empower the next generation of leaders throughout the state of California. And we most certainly are looking for individuals from the Redwood Coast who would be surfaced and elevated to us to participate in these 2 programs I'm going to describe. The first is what we hope will be, youth in your region's experience with this philosophy is our Young Leaders Advisory Council. This is a group that's not just a novelty within our organization. We actually plug these young individuals into very substantial, meaningful work. They're involved on our board as an organization, in our action fund. They're involved in a lot of the discussions where we're shaping policy and influencing decisions on investments and strategic planning. And so it's not just something we stand up for ornamental reasons. It's something that has a lot of substance to it, and we are looking always to find talented youth, young leaders who have that hunger for leadership in your region, who you believe will be at the helm of organizations and many of the causes and priorities on the Redwood Coast. So we welcome you to forward those individuals to us so that we can introduce them to this program and hopefully secure their participation. The other program, which I'm happy to say my friend and colleague Susan Seaman and I participated in together, is the Becky Morgan Steward Leadership Program. This program is named after the matriarch of the Morgan family, who she actually spent some time in the state legislature and was really exemplary of what a civic steward leader looks like and how they should operate. And Ms. Morgan has been very instrumental to not just the organization as a whole and the work that we do in regions, but to the development of this program. And this program, we hope that our youth from the first program will eventually graduate into this program later in their lives and careers as they enter into positions where they are operating on behalf of organizations that are having a regional impact in your case, the Redwood Coast. These are individuals, there is no age limit to this program. People ask, is this for youth? Is this for mid-career? It's really all of the above. It's people who are interested in starting this leadership journey with the civic steward mentality and in applying that to what they do as people, but also what they do as professionals in the Redwood Coast. And so we're going to be looking for individuals from your region to consider for this program as well. We're anticipating that beginning in November, we will begin to circulate recruitment materials to identify candidates from all regions of California. And so this is definitely one that I want you all to take advantage of and consider. So now I'm going to transition to this great opportunity that I want to make sure you're all in the queue and in the loop with, because this is definitely something that'll be available to you all on the Redwood Coast. And I think there's the opportunity to leverage a lot of great work that's been going on out there that I'm aware of. So let's jump right in. So the Community Economic Resiliency Fund. This really stems from a couple of efforts that have been taking place over the last 2 years that our organization has been intimately involved with. I think a lot of the thinking around this Community Economic Resiliency Fund, came from the Newsom administration's early focus on this Regions Rise Together initiative that some of you may have heard about back in 2019. As an organization, California Forward was had a partnership with the administration and hosting several sessions in different regions of the state where members of the administration came and listened to the regions, identified priorities of the region, took those things back and tried to inform some of the policymaking and investment decisions based on what they heard in places like the Inland Empire, in the North State, in the Central Valley. And so this idea of regions up economic development, that the interconnectivity and interdependence of one region is important to the other, regardless of whether it's inland, coastal, urban, and rural, but we're all connected. We all depend on one another, really stemmed from that effort. And then it continued into 2 years of work that we did with Assembly Member Rudy Salas. And if there's anybody that you should thank for this opportunity, it's Assembly Member Rudy Salas. So he was the champion who carried these two bills over 2 legislative sessions, AB 3205, which didn't make it to the finish line. And then this past year, AB 106, which became the impetus and for what ultimately was signed by Governor Newsom a few weeks ago, SB 162. But it's the trailer bill language for that Community Economic Resiliency Fund really was modeled after what was in the bill language that Assemblymember Rudy Salas carried on behalf of the coalition. And so we were very excited to see a few weeks ago that the legislation was signed via SB 162 and got the wheels moving on what is now quickly becoming the development of guidelines for this program. And so as we speak, quite literally, these things are being finalized and worked on for a few reasons, and I'll get to those in a bit. So here's what we know about the program. A lot of this is still in its final stages of being concretely presented to the public. There'll be some public comment that I'll talk about in a bit. But here's what we just heard as late as yesterday from one of the program managers who will be assisting several of the agencies, several of the state agencies affiliated with this program, which are GoBiz, the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, and the Labor and Workforce Development Agency are the 3 organizations or agencies at the state that are involved with this. But here's what we do know. A lot of questions are still unanswered until the initial guidelines come out. But the funding is making available $600 million. This is being financed through federal ARPA dollars to support what many regions have been doing in California, but to extend this opportunity to more regions like the Redwood Coast to embark on. $50 million or so of this pot will be available for planning phase applications that regions will be able to submit. The bulk of the money will be available for implementation of recommendations and regional projects that come about through these different plans that regions put together. Some regions are already in the midst of developing these plans. Others are in the early stages of developing their collaboratives to generate the plans that will then be suitable for implementation. But there will be some funding there for both purposes. The gist of this program is for regions to put together these what are called high road transition collaboratives, and this term of high road development has a lot of there's a lot in there that I won't go into detail here, but I'm happy to walk any of you through what's meant with high road. But these collaboratives must have very specific people at the table, representatives of organized labor, the business community, members of your regional communities, local governments, and community-based organizations, residents. There's input that should be collected there. And other stakeholders like philanthropy, economic development professionals, workforce development, community foundations, anchor institutions like your universities, community colleges should all have a place at this inclusive table that needs to be built for the purposes of accessing these dollars. The collaboratives must really prioritize the things you see on the screen here: equity, racial, gender, sustainability. What are you proposing? Is it resilient? Is it dependent of renewable energy sources? Does it have funding streams beyond the state's investment? There's a focus on job quality, that whatever industries are expanded, whatever industries are developed, that they offer good paying jobs that will get people out of working poverty and help build intergenerational wealth for members of your community in the Redwood Coast. There's this focus also on the carbon neutrality of the future, and that essentially all this works for families, for workers, and for communities. The end outcome, I think, needs to be that these collaboratives develop, one or more economic recovery and transition plans on behalf of the whole region, or elements of sub-regional places within the region. So there's that component as well. And one of the key things with putting this all together and strategizing and organizing around this is that what's called a skilled and neutral intermediary entity and organization must be identified within the region to build that inclusive planning table that encompasses all the different stakeholders I mentioned earlier. And so that's something to definitely chew on, and thinking about, well, who's best positioned on the Redwood Coast to play that role. The other thing that we do know is that there's a timeline that's going to move pretty quickly, and that we as an organization will keep you all in the loop via the partners that we have connections to on the Redwood Coast, including Kathy Mocine, including Susan Seaman, and members of the CERC, which is the COVID-19 Economic Resilience Consortium that I've spoken to in the past and participated in last year, and I know is very active and vibrant still. But this week, we expect to have a public comment period open for the regional definitions. What is meant by the different regions of California? What counties are comprise these regions? And so you all will have an opportunity to provide comment on what's being proposed as the Redwood Coast region, and you can share things of whether the counties are included make sense or don't make sense, things for the state to keep in mind as it finalizes its definitions of region. We anticipate that public comment period will open this week. As soon as it does, we will make sure to get that information out to you for your input. We also heard yesterday that there will be a public comment period in November, more likely mid to late November, on the program guidelines. That the initial thinking for the guidelines will be released to the public for all of you to provide input on what's in the preliminary language. And then there will be a webinar in mid-December for all of you to participate in, especially those organizations that are interested in being the civic intermediary entities for the region. That will be an opportunity to learn more about what that role consists of. And then the expectation is that late January, the solicitation for the planning phase dollars, the 50 million that I mentioned earlier, will become available and for you all to consider applying for as the Redwood Coast Collaborative. What you understand is that sometime in late March, early April, the selection for the awardees of that planning phase solicitation will be selected with up to $5 million going to each of the regions. We understand that each region will receive at least one award. We don't know how many regions are going to be available. Could be 13, it could be more, but there will be an award made in each region is what we understand, and up to $5 million per award. The deployment of those funds after awardees are selected is still to be determined when the money will actually be released to the regions, but more coming on that along with a bunch of other stuff. And then what we understood is that the first phase of what will likely be a couple phases of the release of solicitations and dollars for the implementation bucket of this program, which is the larger 550 million, that the first solicitation will likely come about in June of this upcoming year, with selection of the awardees happening more than likely in October. And again, there we heard that every region will receive at least one award under the implementation pot. So tremendous opportunity for you all to consider applying and positioning yourself to access these dollars to support the work that I know is already happening in the region, and to support further efforts to continue to strategically plan around a multiple county boundary and identity that is the Redwood Coast. And there will be a session at the California Economic Summit. We hope many and all of you will be able to participate in that event, whether in person or virtually. But we will have a session dedicated at that event that will provide more updates for this fund. And so that's will be a popular piece of the program we're anticipating for our annual event. The last thing I want to say is that you have something to leverage already to elevate, build upon for your multi-county Redwood Coast identity, for your multi-county strategic planning, deployment of services, because I've heard it, I've seen it, I've participated in it, and I know it's still very active, very vibrant, very relevant, and very important. And that's your COVID-19 Economic Resilience Consortium, your CERC. I've seen participants in that effort from Del Norte County, from Mendocino County, Humboldt County, Trinity County, I think, and even maybe I think I might have seen some folks from Lake County. But it really provides, I think, a good foundation to build upon that ecosystem that you all have built. So you ought to give yourself a pat on the back for doing that, for being proactive in that way, because now it gives you this platform to jump off for accessing these resources. I think you all will want to give some consideration to how you leverage that CERC to position yourself for these the availability of these dollars to continue to support and further the work that you're doing. The last thing I'll share is that California Forward, myself, Patrick, who you're going to hear from here in a second, and the rest of our team, we are going to be available to work with regions like yours to think through, strategize, prepare, submit applications for these dollars. From the data piece to the writing, to the setting of tables with stakeholders, helping you reach out to the various partners that are being asked for you to bring to this inclusive table. We're going to be here to support you along the way, and that support we're offering to all our regions. And we've been, very, very honored to have been invited to not just this event, but the CERC and other things going on in your region. And so we know there's a relationship there that we want to leverage to be able to support you in capitalizing on these opportunities. So count on us to be here to continue to offer support. I want to now turn it over to my colleague Patrick, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about one of the ways that we can support you moving forward with these opportunities, but just other projects in the region in general related to data and research. And so with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague Patrick, but let me just say thank you one last time to all of you, Susan and the team, Clara, who's behind the scenes working the magic, for having me here today and for giving me a chance to share this very important information with you. Keep us close and we will be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you kindly, Ish, for that excellent introduction. Hi, all. My name is Patrick Atwater, as Ish introduced me, and I want to be here to talk to you about our California Dream Index. How do we know whether or not we are making progress towards the goals and the intended outcomes of these great programs that Ish mentioned and other things going on throughout the region? How do we know what progress looks like? What we talk about is the California Dream Index. Why the California Dream? Well, California is very unique among the 50 states. We're the only one that really has tied our identity to this notion of a dream of a better life. Part of the beauty and part of the challenge of that is that, people come here and pursue their dreams here for a wide variety and diversity of goals and outcomes. What we talk about here with the California Dream Index, we really define it in terms of the means and the opportunity for one generation to do better than the next. As someone mentioned in the chat, California is, we like to think or talk about how we have one of the world's largest economies, which is definitely very unique. If you go back to the Great Recession, we were around the world's 9th largest economy, and now I think we might actually be 5th. Definitely very large and kind of a, as our governor says, a nation among states. It's important to recognize, though, that prosperity has not been shared by all. If you go back since the Great Recession, over 60% of the jobs that were created actually in California pay less than $18 an hour. And this is before COVID, which has definitely exacerbated some long-term structural inequalities. And it's important to recognize that these trends have been compounding and building for a long time. If you go back to if you were born in 1940, you have in California, you have over a 90% chance of out earning your parents. If you were born in 1980, by contrast, that was declined to less than a coin flip, around 48%, according to a Harvard economist, Raj Chetty, who's done some really pioneering work around the state of the American dream, not just in California, but nationally. So we really care about economic mobility because, while there's a diversity of dreams here, the means to be able to actually sustain yourself, to pursue a home, to do all the things that we care about are really critical. So when we talk about the Dream Index, we have a tool and a suite of indicators, which if you go to the link that I shared earlier, and there was another person who kindly shared the link to our website where you can see the Dream Index itself. There you'll see the 10 indicators that compose how we are tracking and thinking about things that we really care about that are connected to long run economic mobility. Because as Susan mentioned, we can look at things like, okay, how is unemployment doing? But we always want to ask, okay, are people able to actually afford the cost of living on that type of income? And are we creating the conditions so that we're building long-term, sustainable, inclusive economies? So to achieve that, we have a tool so that you can break down how these track how we are doing across regions, across race, across a lot of the things that we care about. And then we also link in our resource portal to not just our 10 indicators, but to a wide variety of there's a wealth of folks that are doing really high quality work. And what we're really building, and this is kind of what we're, how we think about what we are doing, things like here today. And, the stewardship network is building a real community of practice who is really committed to using the evidence to really ground how we shape and influence policymaking, because we really want to ground it in kind of common sense and what actually is working to uplift the lives of actual Californians. When we were looking at how we would actually decide, you might think there's a lot of things that we care about in terms of whether or not we are progressing as a state or as a region like the Redwood Coast. The way that we went about in terms of constructing this index is we tried to prioritize a couple of key things. One, we wanted to be very simple and parsimonious. That's why we have 10 indicators. We really wanted to embed equity into rather than layer it on after the fact onto the index. So we all these indicators are able to be broken down by race and region. And then we talk about how they can have a real demonstrated connection in research and the economic literature to economic mobility. Because if we're really trying to uplift and enhance the California dream, we want to be making sure that we are addressing the key intervention points. So what are these 10 indicators? Well, these things range from things from like affordable rent to early childhood education. They really address very common sense questions that you might have, that you'd have as someone living here. Is the rent too high? Can you actually afford? Is there a reasonable path to like own a home? Do jobs pay enough that you can afford the cost of living here? Are commutes reasonable? Can you actually like get to where you're working in a reasonable time frame, or does that suck up a ton of your day in terms of minutes? How are we doing in terms of educating and providing skills? So not just looking at college, but also career technical education. How are we doing in terms of providing broadband access for all, which is a really critical issue. It's an area that we've made progress, but there's still more to be done. How are we doing ensuring that economic opportunity is broadly shared and that there aren't, pockets of concentrated poverty, and then we're making sure that we're building prosperous neighborhoods. Do folks have access to clean air, to clean drinking water? Do we have access to early childhood education, which we know is really critical because those early years are learning years? So those 10 indicators we know are really connected and correlated with long-term economic mobility. And these are also things that we work on and really prioritize across California Forward. So that I wanted to kind of share with you a couple of, some data points that jumped out for the Redwood Coast. And yes, I definitely agree with that, Carrie, that commute times and broadband, there is definitely a connection, and that's something that we've seen with the rise of remote work across the state. And as we look at, prosperous neighborhoods, so this is looking at the percentage of residents who are living in census tracts with less than 20% in poverty. So that's looking at the federal poverty line, which, if you know, is a national standard. So it's definitely, in a place like California, is very much a almost what you might think about as extreme poverty. So the Redwood Coast, is, as you see, kind of dipped coming out of the Great Recession and hasn't quite recovered as well. There's opportunities for improvement, particularly when you look at how the trajectory of other parts of the state. Then there's also additional, we've seen, despite this economic growth, and we're talking about how the state as a whole has grown to, 5th largest in the world, there's been somewhat of an increase in terms of the folks that are able to pay a reasonable rate in rent, but there's really a stagnation there and a need to do much better. And when we look at home ownership as well, there's actually been a decline in the Redwood Coast, which mirrors the state as a whole, which is an area that is really critical to the state. And then when we also look at incomes above cost of living, this is an area that we see that the Redwood Coast is lagging the state as a whole. And this does notably include things like healthcare. So when we're talking about cost of living, we're thinking about, can you afford to pay your medical bills? Can you afford rent? So it does include, I've seen the comments, the things around the critical importance of healthcare. And so when we had Kathy Moxon and Greg Foster were kind enough to have me up earlier. One of the pieces that we talked about a lot is how, healthcare costs, there's very much a floor across regions. So while a place like, typical incomes would be a bit lower in a region like the Redwood Coast than say Silicon Valley, it can still be, there's definitely an affordability issue there. As well as, I definitely hear that there. And so the other piece, is folks are mentioning great resources. I'll share my email at the end. One of the pieces that we really, these are the 10 indicators that we've, talked about in terms of their connection to economic mobility. These are obviously not all the things that we care about. We definitely care about ensuring, a vibrancy in the arts. We care about ensuring that there's access in addition to affordability of healthcare. So we have a resource portal with the DREAM Index. And if there's anything that, really speaks to those issues that you care and are passionate about, would love to engage in dialogue. Just please drop me a line. It's patrick@cf4.org. I'll share that in the chat. It's also the last slide. But I would love to get in dialogue and figure out, how we can feature those, both in terms of our DREAM Index resource portal and other creative strategies so that we can uplift those issues, because those definitely are very critical to enabling and uplifting the California dream. So I also wanted to talk about, in addition to some of these longer term trends, how are we doing today? There's been a bit of a pandemic, which we've all been experiencing. And so here we look at, there was a dramatic decline in small businesses opening that were closing as a result of the, shutdown in early 2020. And one of the things that really kind of jumped out to me is, those data only go through earlier this year, but if you look all the way up to today and look specifically at consumer spending, if we look at Humboldt, and then I'll show Mendocino in a second, consumer spending is actually up from where we were in January 2020. And very notably, up higher than the state as a whole. The state as a whole is around 15% higher than January 2020. Whereas Humboldt, we're up around 25% higher than we were in January 2020. And then Mendocino, we're a whopping 36.5%, which definitely seemed noteworthy, and was curious for folks that are living there if that aligns with your lived experience, and if you have any thoughts or ideas about what might be driving that. And then also kind of looking more broadly, and this is a resource from one of our global partners that we feature in our resource portal, a think tank out of London called the Legatum Institute, which looks really holistically at prosperity, not just in California, not just the United States, but also globally, which is very cool. But they have a thing that looks at things, the kind of broader civic infrastructure. So looking at the social capital, and we see here that Humboldt and Mendocino County are lagging the state a bit. And it's hard to, I don't mean to ignore Del Norte. There's just, there are kind of data availability issues for that piece of the Redwood Coast. And that's something that's also important to notice, because these are also looking kind of up through the pandemic, and the pandemic has definitely done a lot when we talk about civic trust and things that a lot of the fabric that is really critical for making a society work. And these slides will all be available, though I know and sorry, I'm from maybe I guess there's a bit of a debate. But I'm definitely from LA. I love the Redwood Coast, but I'm definitely so a visitor. So I apologize if I'm putting my foot in my mouth with any of the pronunciations. Though I know we have 10 minutes left, and I'm sure you have questions for Ish and you have other things like that. So I will share my email, and I'll also put this in the chat. So if you have any things that you want to, any questions about this, the slides will be made available. And then if you have any things that you want to share that really kind of are critical to the, as you tell the story to the region, particularly for a kind of a statewide policymaking audience, please don't hesitate to be in touch.
Excellent. Did we have a quick look over to make sure there are no questions that need to be answered? But I will attest that these guys are very responsive and easy to talk to. So if you have any questions, reach out to them. I'm sure this is a conversation that we'll probably have amongst each other continually. So thanks so much for coming, you guys. I'm so glad to have you. I hope you get to watch some more of the program and get to hear about what's going on, because I always like for people to hear what's going on, and I will talk to y'all soon.
Yeah, great. We look forward to being out there and visiting all your counties, including Mendocino County.
Yes. Yeah, I can't wait to go. I mean, it's been fun to do these virtual events, though. I echo Ish's comments. It'll be great to get out there in person. As you can see, I have my bike behind me. I love to ride, and it's a beautiful part of the.
You did pronounce Del Norte in the incorrect way. That is very confusing for
Thank you.
for many people. So we will see you all soon. And that was a great presentation, and I am excited about the potential for what we can do. So we will use our collaboration skills and get some of that that sweet money into our region. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Susan.
Next up, we will have Kate Lancaster, and Dr. Lancaster is actively involved in advancing the inclusion of sustainability into the decision-making process in many types of organizations. And she has some really innovative and creative ways to look at a truly sustainable economy, which is the way we need to look at it, because we can't think short-term. So Dr. Lancaster, welcome, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, and I'm excited to be here. Let me share my screen.
Sure.
Always a challenge to figure this out. I have to click the right button. Susan, thank you so much for inviting me. And as many people have, thank you, Clara, for all of the back effort that you have made to help this be a success. And I'm really excited to be here today. I have to admit I'm a little nervous, but that's going to make it even better. So I'm just very excited to be here and to share this very special topic with you. I first want to acknowledge that I am on the unceded territory and the ancestral homeland of the Wiyot, and I live in, I always have a tough time pronouncing it, Gudana, which is now known as, and I am so grateful for the opportunities to live with and learn from my neighbors. Ooh, there we go. Oh, darn. Okay. There, darn, I'm skipping over one slide. It's not letting me show the people that I'm grateful to. Maybe it's coming up. Okay, so my session goals are to create an opportunity for you to imagine a different future. And it's wonderful to hear the stories that are being told by the other speakers here. And I'm going to be inviting you to be futurist today and to imagine this future that we are going to be creating together and stepping into. And I hope to inspire you with some examples of various individuals and communities that are doing some really innovative things, and invite you to step in and create the future that you want to here in your community. In particular, I'm going to be focusing on cooperatively owned businesses, as well as Indigenous knowledge and values, and what we can learn from both of those. So it's going to tie it together, I promise. I also want to just point out that at the top of many of my slides, I have just a little notation saying what Friday sessions I think are related to the topic that I'm covering. want to thank the many individuals. This is just some of the individuals that helped me put together this presentation. I am so passionate about this topic that I started with probably, 80 plus slides. And of course, I can't do that in a half an hour, the half hour time slot that I have with you. So these individuals helped me to refine it and bring it, narrow it down and focus on really the essence of what I want to cover today. So I great appreciation. And it really does take a community to collaborate and to create a future that we want to create and step into. As many of you know, we are facing some challenges. Oh, I also forgot to say that please hold your questions until the end, and I will be happy to respond to those questions, time allowing. And I don't want to run over, so that's why I want to move through my slides. I will be also sharing my slides with you, and I will also have, I think, about 6 pages of sources that I've used for the slides, the research that I did to put this together, and then also have the producers or the directors cut the slides that did not make this presentation that I'll be sharing with you as well, that provide additional resources and information. So back to this slide, we are facing numerous challenges. The pandemic has just really uprooted and shifted the way we go about our daily activities. The inequality that we are seeing, one recent report that I saw is that 745 billionaires in the United States hold over $5 trillion as compared to the $3 trillion that are held by the bottom 50% in U.S. households. So we've got this just massive inequality that is occurring. And that's leading to some unrest and both political and social unrest. We are also facing what's called the 6th extinction, where the activities and the actions that we are taking on this planet are affecting other species in addition to humans, the human species. As part of climate change, we are experiencing reduced food production. It's not just climate change, that certainly has an impact on what and where we are able to produce our food, but we're also seeing that climate change is reducing the nutritional value of food, in that the food, because of the additional CO2 in the atmosphere, it is growing quicker and it's not slowing down enough to take up the nutrients. So we're seeing reduced food production, and we're also seeing and experiencing reduced nutritional value. And this is of current concern in many communities, and is related to what is called a food desert, where people do not have access to healthy food. We're also in a part of what is called an extractive economy, and this is that resources, both natural resources as well as human labor resources through labor, is being extracted, and that is in part contributing to this massive inequality. A recent report by the UN Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, the 2021 report, stated that we are in code red with respect to climate change, and that we have to respond quickly and dramatically in order to be able to address the major challenges that we will be facing in the near future. And of course, if we think about the opportunities that might exist with this within this systemic change and time of upheaval, we want to pay attention to how we can transform maybe grief and despair that we're feeling into love and hope. And I offer these few suggestions on how to do so. I certainly vacillate between being hopeful and being full of despair with respect to what we're facing right now. So this helps me to stay present, and it's to tend to what is important. So it might be your values, your community, your family, your access to healthy and clean food for members within your community, social justice issues, whatever is your passion and whatever is of importance. And that is also a way that you can be of service, is to attend to and contribute to what is important to you. And you can create your own community. It can be community neighborhoods. It can be your larger community. It can be expanding your family and creating intentional family. To stop and be grateful for the gifts that we do have. We are so fortunate to live where we do. And a couple of quotes, or a quote that I'd like to share with you, is that regeneration puts life at the center of every action and decision. I will be talking about regeneration and what it is, in part, a small introduction to it if you're not familiar with the term. And I just imagine what a future might be if we really put our effort into regenerating our natural resources and our communities. Paul Hawken, in his recently published book, Regeneration, talks about the opportunities that we have to reinvest in our communities, to rebuild our infrastructures, to reinvent the way that we go about our daily activities and the way that we get our energy sources and so forth, and to recreate and rebuild what we value from the past as well. So we're going to do a little, what is called a scenario, and Their scenario planning has been used by communities, organizations to envision what the future might hold so that they might become better prepared for it. And this is the graphic designs that I show here are from the work that was done by the San Francisco Bay Area Planning and Urban Research Association. They came up with these 4 different scenarios of what the future might look like in 2070. So we can already imagine what these look like. We've experienced the Rust Belt in various parts of this country as manufacturing was moved overseas or as resources were depleted in particular areas. We might think about our area as having resources depleted, and that we've had the logging industry and the salmon industry that really were a boom and now maybe have gone down over time. We also have seen evidence of people creating their bunkers and stockpiling resources and goods so that they and their family and loved ones can stay safe. So that's another possible future. There's also a possible future, what's called the gated utopia, and that is where the people of means are able to sequester themselves and protect themselves from the rest of us and create and go about daily lives while the rest of us are trying to scavenge and forage for the meager scraps. And I do not want to spend any effort or waste any effort on the negative scenarios. And my goal here today is to focus on this new social impact. And that is where it's a very inclusive, egalitarian community where basic needs are met and where there's music and dancing and children and animals. And we're all just engaging in life and as our fullest potential, at our fullest potential. So our little visioning exercise, where we're going to be futurists for a moment here, is that we are going to imagine that it's 2060 and that we've experienced social injustice, environmental catastrophes, ecological collapse, economic disparity, the pandemic, hopefully only one, species extinction, pollution, and so much more. But through that, we've come together, collaborated, been creative, reinvented, rebuilt, we've adapted, and we've evolved. So your children and your grandchildren are visiting. You're taking them for a walk in your community. And I'm going to slow down here and give you a few moments to just really step into this experience. And I invite you to engage your senses. What do you hear? What do you see? And what do you smell? What does it feel like? And what surprises you? How are you interacting with others? And what does work look like for your children? And I invite you to put a few notes in the main stage chat as to what you're experiencing, feeling. And I'm trying to click over to it so that I can see it also, and I'm not able to get to it. So Clara, I'm going to ask if you can share a few of those with me. I think Clara's trying to join us.
Yes, hi. So we'd love to hear from you in the main stage chat, what you're feeling, what you're thinking about. So let's give them another minute or two to get those thoughts out to us. This is great.
So it sounds like no one has put any comments in yet. So I will go ahead and continue at this point in time. If I can get back down to the correct screen. I've got a wild mouse here. See if I can do it this way. Okay, yes. So what I imagine is that we were weaving a new story, and each strand was creating a component of that future that we're building into. So it really is the stories that we're telling that are creating the future. When we were thinking about this, we were probably thinking about some constraints. My guess is that big business and big government was not part of your vision, because it probably just wasn't, it was too unwieldy to respond to the challenges that local communities were facing. So it was that we were invested in building our local and individual empowerment and working together, what is called a pluralistic approach, that each community, probably because of its various resources and various values, created a different approach. And so all of these approaches are really kind of focused on that concept of biodiversity, that we're responding to the situation in different ways. My hope is that your future was egalitarian and inclusive, and that it also was regenerative, that you were investing resources and time in rebuilding and repairing our life support systems, as well as caring for all of life. The little graphic on the right-hand side I want to share with you quickly is permaculture, which is a framework on really re-establishing our relationship with the natural environment and observing nature and seeing how nature would solve problems. And the principles are earth care, people care, and fair share. So they really embody a future that I would love to step into. As we're imagining this future, we were starting to plant the seeds. And the seeds and agriculture, to me, is a very critical component. Before I move on to talking about that, I just wanted to talk about how important art is as we are imagining this future as well. And Ricardo Levin Morales is what I would call a social justice artist, and has done some beautiful work with respect to depicting what we're currently facing, as well as creating or inviting us to imagine a different future and to step into that future. So I think that one of the most important things for us to invest in is the health of the land and food. So these are 5 examples that I will be sharing with you. The one on the upper left-hand corner, some of you may have seen the movie Biggest Little Farm. It is a kind of an autobiography of the couple who founded Apricot Lane Farms, and they took over a derelict avocado farm, as I understand and remember it, and they rebuilt the soil and replenished the soil using permaculture and regenerative methods. A lot of cover crops, a lot of putting nutrients, natural nutrients on the soil. This was worm poo, as well as other livestock were invited in. They used ducks to control the slugs, and so it was really learning how to work with nature to heal nature. In the center slide, this is Melanie and Kevin Cunningham. They live in Carlotta, California, and they are practicing regenerative agricultural principles. One of the key things on agricultural regenerative principles is that it rebuilds nature's ability to sequester carbon in both the soils and the plants. So by investing in regenerative practices, we're responding to a lot of the challenges that we are currently facing. So Kevin and Melanie sell their produce at various farmers markets, as well as through CSAs. And if anyone doesn't know what a CSA is, it's community supported agriculture, where you are buying a share of that farmer's produce and you'll be delivered a box of goodies every month. So it's a wonderful way to expand your culinary experiences. On the upper right-hand corner is also a farm in our community in Fortuna, and it is Table Bluff Farm. They are also practicing regenerative agricultural practices and rebuilding the soil. They also offer CSAs, and they are using heritage pigs to help to restore their soils. On the lower left-hand corner, this is Jason Brown. He is a retired football player who walked away from his career at the height of his career, walked away from a multi-million-dollar contract because God called him to start a farm. And he and his family now produce 120,000 pounds plus of produce a year, and they distribute it at no charge to their local communities. In the same county, on the right-hand side, is Tierra Tortilla Cooperative. And this is a wonderful segue to what I'm going to be talking about next. Tierra Tortilla Cooperative is a Latino-owned farm and owned by the workers. And just as a really nice thing to think about is there was a local farmer who had some fallow land who has gifted or given or allowed this cooperative to operate on his land. So it's a wonderful way of collaborating and connecting and creating community within our areas. And another example, so I'm now moving into a couple of examples of cooperatives along the food chain, or stepping up from agriculture. And the next example is Chai Fresh Chicken. And this is in Chicago in Southside. These 5 members came together during the pandemic and started a cooperative, a worker-owned cooperative. And what they are doing is they are providing food to members within their community. They are now providing over 500 meals a day, and they're working with various partners. And I love the way that they are expanding their, what they call their food ecosystem. So they're thinking about how they can link to and connect to producers, food operators, work centers, policy advocates. And most of these organizations are led by people of color on the South Side and West Sides of Chicago. So what they're doing is they're helping to build an ecosystem and strengthen their community and give opportunities to people who may not have been included in the economic growth in various areas. Another example of a cooperative is Link Foods. And this cooperative is owned by the farmers within the community that have joined the cooperative, as well as the worker employees. So it's kind of a multi-level cooperative. The cooperative partners or reaches out to the various larger institutions. And so, for example, the hospital and the university in that area, and they determine what foods are needed that can be produced locally, and then they work with the farmers to produce that food. They then serve as the hub to collect that food and distribute it to their various consumers. They also operate a CSA so that individuals can partake of the bounty as well. And I have been talking quite a bit about cooperatives, so I want to share some statistics about the impact that cooperatives can have. So this is an infographic that was put together by Cooperative Catalyst of New Mexico, and they found that 68% of total U.S. co-op worker owners are women, as well as 60% of new co-op worker owners since 2010 are people of color. So to me, this gives some evidence that cooperatives are a great way for people that may have been marginalized to step into the economic, strengthening an economic model and system, and creating a stronger local community. Another example that I'd like to share with you, or some other additional data, is that the differential in the ratio of CEO to worker pay. On the left-hand side, you see the average CEO to worker pay ratio for corporations in the United States. And on the right-hand side, what you see is the CEO to worker pay ratio for the largest U.S. worker cooperative, which is Cooperative Home Care Associates. And many worker-owned cooperatives have a even a smaller pay ratio. And what it is that it's a desire and a willingness to share resources rather than have that financial resource that the essential workers are providing extracted and then consolidated in the minority with the shareholders. So it's a different way of doing business and thinking about how can I keep money within my local community through these investing in cooperatives. In addition, co-ops, research has found that co-ops are less likely to lay off workers in a recession. And a couple of studies found that what cooperatives do is they'll sometimes lower the amount of time that everyone works so that everyone is stayed the same. And then oftentimes cooperatives will put aside a rainy day fund that they will draw on to continue to pay their workers if it's a longer recession. Another statistic that's not included on this infographic is that worker-owned cooperatives are more likely to be more productive and more efficient because the workers have an vested interest in in the success of the company. The impact of the cooperatives is really important to think about the ecosystem that is being created in your community to support a cooperative. And so I have a couple of slides here that I'll talk about that. One thing is that we need to think about the legislation that is in place. We do have cooperative legislation in California, and there are a variety of communities, you'll see in just a moment, that are building an additional infrastructure within their local community. There has to be some sort of education so that there can be ways for people to learn how to start a worker-owned cooperative, and I'll provide an example of that here in just a moment as well. So these are some examples of communities, both in California and beyond. And I do want to focus on one in particular, and that's the one at the bottom here, which is the partnership that the North Coast Small Business Development Center, Cooperation Humboldt, and Project Equity have developed here in Humboldt County to help support and start up worker-owned cooperatives. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail in a couple of slides. So I just wanted to point that out. I also, on this slide, I wanted to respond. Leila put a comment in the main stage earlier about the high road economy, about that is, I believe, the Sustainable Business Association. And that's a wonderful example. And I think worker-owned cooperatives are the next step up from the high road economy, because rather than just thinking about the owners being good to their employees, it's the worker owners that are thinking about the good for all. So it's a kind of another step that we can take. But that's a wonderful resource. And thank you for sharing that, Leila. So I'm going to segue a little bit here. And I'm going to talk about another challenge that we are facing, I guess. Many of you, I'm sure, are aware that our recycling system is overstretched and broken after China really pulled out and quit taking much of our waste. And so we have to think about what are we going to do at end of life for all of these products. And full disclosure, I am on the board for Zero Waste Humboldt, and recycling and waste is a passion of mine, along with how do we reimagine the future and what is the role of cooperatives. And so I just want to share this example with you. This is a mall that has been repurposed, and the mall is located right next to the recycling center in this community in Sweden. And there's a staff that go through all of the material that is brought into the recycling center. They sort it and determine what can be repaired or reused, and in part what can be reused as art. And so then they repair it, restore it, and then place it in the store and sell it along with other recycled, remanufactured products. And then they also offer classes, and I love this, that it empowers people to think about how they can repair their own broken machinery, like their broken lawnmower or whatever, and so that they keep it out of the landfill. So there's all sorts of good things around this way of thinking about closing that loop and keeping things out of the landfills. So that was just a little segue. I'm going to my next topic now, which is what we can learn from our Indigenous community members. And I highlighted a statement here. U.S. Secretary of Department Deb Haaland joined us in Humboldt County a few months ago. And then she recently posted or wrote an article that was published in the North Coast Journal. And I want to highlight this one comment that was in that article. I knew then, as I still feel now, that we're at the beginning of a new era where Indigenous knowledge and our work to combat systemic inequities and craft policies to ensure fairness and a bright future for everyone is valued and prioritized. I just imagine that bright future that we're going to be creating and working on together. Through my research, and this has become one of my passions, is learning how and understanding how a community, individuals were able to thrive in an area for thousands of years. And so this was one of the resources that I found that I want to share with you. They found that there were 4 central principles that successful Indigenous societies were built on and are built on. The first is that community is essential for survival. And I want to invite us to think bigger than just people, that that community included earth, the land that they lived on, and all living beings. And their understanding was that everything was interconnected and related, and that the health of one being was a reflection of the health of all. Another aspect is that life is sustained through balance and harmony. And on that point, I want to just say that we are so out of balance. We are extracting more natural resources from the earth than the earth is able to replenish. We're also extracting non-renewable resources and shifting the balance, and that's clearly evident in our increased CO2 emissions and increased CO2 in the atmosphere. So how do we bring back into harmony? How do we do so? I think one of our opportunities is to learn from our Indigenous community members. And I think another opportunity is to learn from nature. And I want to share a little story with you here. When I walked in today, it was pretty gusty. We're getting ready to have, I think, a major storm here in our area in Arcata. And so the leaves were churning and circling around. And it was such a great reminder to me. First off, about how we are in a massive, let me do this. We are in a time of change, and that's what the leaves are representing to me, is that time of change. And then also, and that's what you see behind me, was I had a blank wall, and so I wanted to spruce it up, and so I went and collected some leaves. And then also some of us are invaders, right? And so this is an ivy, which is not a desired plant in this area. And so my invitation is to, I guess, learn how to contribute to the success of our community by becoming more indigenous to our place, or putting it down our roots. And then the fourth aspect is sustainability and resilience. And indigenous communities were able to live on their lands for, again, thousands of years, and to work with the land, to heal the land, to regenerate and repopulate species, and work within the Earth's and appreciate the bounty, work within Earth's boundaries and appreciate the bounty. Just as one quick example of this, I found that globally indigenous land supports 80% of the remaining biodiversity. And so it's just a wonderful example of how indigenous communities really enhance diversity. One of my favorite authors, Robin Wall Kimmerer, in her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, has what she calls the honorable harvest. And I just want to offer this up as a way to think about how we can work with nature and learn to heal nature and so forth. So I want to focus on just three of these aspects. And the first is to never take the first one. By never taking the first one, that ensures that we leave something for future generations. And that is, I think, a wonderful lesson to learn. The second one is to be grateful. And I spoke on that earlier, in that we are so gifted and so many of us have so many opportunities, and we live in such a beautiful part of the country as well. And then the third one I want to focus on is reciprocating the gift. And that is to share the bounty, share the resources. Maybe it might be sharing a meal with your neighbor. It also is investing some time in making the place that you live better. One of my dreams was that we all have a small plot of land where we are learning how to care for that piece of land, growing our own food, replenishing the soil, learning how to do so, and reciprocating the gift that nature does give us by planting seeds and weeding and making that place a healthy, thriving area. Moving on a little bit, I want to say that many communities, indigenous communities across the country and actually across the globe, are investing in worker-owned cooperatives in order to build their economic structure, as well as to keep their financial resources closer to home. So two examples are within the utility industries. Both of these industries, or these examples, are customer-owned cooperatives, and a couple of the cooperatives that are on native lands are also investing in renewable resources as their energy base. Another example of keeping resources, this is financial resources, closer to home, is developing or creating, operating what are called credit unions. So keeping financial resources in the area as well. And then two other examples that I show on this slide are art cooperatives, where people put together websites or actually have physical structures where they're able to sell their wares and support each other. And then food is a very important aspect that some community or indigenous tribes are investing in, is creating like the Dene Regenerative Agriculture Cooperative, relearning how to be in right relationship with the land. The next slide is a couple of local examples. This is Dishkama in Humboldt, Dishkama Humboldt, and it is a collaborative effort with the Wiyot community, as well as Cooperation Humboldt and other players. It is a Wiyot-led effort to heal and rebuild the land and the community and the spirits of people. And their goal is to acquire developed land and then put that into a community land trust, and then have resources on top of that land. Oh, and I also need to say that all of these projects will be led and guided by Wiyot values. And And so some examples of some of the projects that might land on this land are training skill shops for people to learn trades so that they have a livelihood. It might be eco-villages to provide low-income housing. It might also be food gardens, community food gardens, so that people have access to healthy food to address some of the food desert challenges that some members of our community have. Another local example that I want to share with you. Oh, and just there's a heads up here. Session 4C tomorrow will be Michelle Vassell and David Cobb, who will be discussing their vision of Dishkama Humboldt. So I invite you to join that one. Excuse me. Another community that I'm involved with is Cooperation Humboldt, and Cooperation Humboldt has these, what they call their 7 program areas. It's a decentralized decision-making process where each hub is empowered to pursue what their passions are. The hubs continue to grow and change and evolve as other people join this community. The 2 communities that I'm involved with right now are the study groups, where we lead people and work, we co-facilitate and work through understanding the challenges that we face as a community and as a species and a society, and then coming up with and addressing and seeing some of the opportunities for moving forward in a more a collaborative way of building a solidarity, what is called a solidarity economy. Another one that I'm involved with that I want to share just briefly is the economic democracy, and I'm an advisor with worker-owned Humboldt, and this is that collaborative that I was talking about earlier with the Humboldt Small Business Development Center. Thank you so much, Leela, for providing the opportunity and being an inspirational leader in this. And then also my colleagues, thank you to them for helping me better understand the ins and outs of worker-owned cooperatives. And I'm learning so much by being involved with this. And I'm personally involved with 2 different companies. One is a conversion, a hopeful conversion. So it's a wonderful way to think about giving your legacy or passing your legacy on to someone else. And then I'm also involved with a startup, and I'm not at liberty to describe any more about those at this point in time because we want to wait till they're launched. And so I have 2 slides remaining. And so I want to just quickly remind us how fortunate we are to live in this just incredible place. The 3 counties that are represented here. We have natural beauty, an abundance of natural beauty, our forests and our beaches. We are able to engage in numerous outdoor activities. We are a community or communities of artistic and creative people with many entrepreneurs, many small businesses in our area, and a lot of small businesses because we're able to connect with our neighbors. We have thriving farmers markets, and we are fortunate to have an abundance of agriculturally rich land. We are also fortunate to be living around and with numerous Indigenous community members who are holding that Indigenous knowledge and ways of being. And many of them are inviting us in to learn with them as well. I also, in the very center of the slide here, I want to share a local worker-owned cooperative that just launched this year, and it is Full Cycle Compost. I almost forgot the name there for a second. And it's a wonderful response to one of the challenges that many communities are facing. SB 1383 is requiring all communities to no longer put food scraps into landfills. And so this cooperative bicycles around and offers, I guess, essentially shares, and they collect your bucket full of food and then take it to a local garden where it is converted into compost. So it's a wonderful example of closing the loop and keeping the waste out of the waste stream and converting it into a renewable resource. So now what? I invite you to engage in tomorrow's sessions. There's about 20 different sessions, and I invite you to explore and see what you're interested in, and then to get together with members in your community to co-create a vision, and then to reach out and dig in and put down roots and spread those roots and connect to other people within your community and beyond. And the graphic on the right-hand side here is the natural step, which I think is a wonderful way of thinking about how to go through this process. So we just did a visioning. We were the futurist, where we visioned the future. I talked a little bit about the present and gave you some examples of what is possible. And now I invite you to get together to come up with creative solutions and to decide on priorities and then launch those and create that future that you want to step into. And my closing slide is just I'd like to share this quote from that is attributed to Peter Drucker, and it is, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I thank you so much for your time. If there are any questions that anyone has or anything you'd like to share, please put it in the chat and I will respond to it. And the notes and slides will be going out at the end of the session here, so that you can dig more deeply into it if you'd like. Thanks again.
We have about 170 people who are making their way across the Great Hall. And just imagine, you know, you're getting up out of your seat at your conference and you got to go to the big other room. So while they are finding their link and coming over here, we'll just give them a second to get settled in. I do want to say, I don't want to crash your presentation, but I'm really glad that you're addressing tourism, because it's so important to all three of our counties. And yet we have like 20 different breakout sessions, and I don't think we have any that are focused specifically on tourism. There are a lot of things. I mean, we're starting planning for next year in like 2 weeks. So I'm making my list of the things that we didn't include this year. But I think this is a great way to make sure that we, you know, really talk about the importance of it. So thanks. And also, I hear you're in town, actually.
We are, yeah, you better believe it. Was up at the airport earlier today, talking about all issues in the microgrid, and we were over with Friends of the Dune talking about their need to go to a national monument status, and then we're meeting with the zoo on some of their budget requests. That thank you so much, Mayor, that you're leading in the city of Eureka, and then of course have some events this evening. So really grateful to be here, and I think we owe Susan Seaman a debt of gratitude for her incredible work on all issues of this conference. Thank you so much. Very, very grateful, Mayor, for everything you do.
That is very sweet. After this conference, I will say I'm going to be going on a vacation. And on that vacation, I'm going to go on the second longest skywalk in the country that was just recently knocked off by the one in the city of Eureka. And I'm making sure to meet the mayor there so I can, you know, not rub it in.
That we now have the longest skywalk in the world. So just make sure you say it multiple times.
Yes, and also that it's the length of the skywalk is the size of a redwood tree, which is just astounding when you think about walking that whole length of it. It's pretty cool. I'm going to check and see. It looks like we have about 125 people here, so we'll give them just a minute more to get over, and then I will do the introductions. I'm very excited about this panel. So. We're starting to see people check in. This is good.
I want to say good morning. Looks like good afternoon. We have Supervisor Bushnell on the line. Thank you so much. We have Councilman Arroyo on the line. Thank you very, very much. Kristen, good morning. Thank you. How you doing, Emma? Thank you so much for tuning in last night. Very grateful. Jesse, how's it going? Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here today. We're really grateful. Monica says, yay for Mayor Seaman. You're darn right, Monica. Mayor Seaman is going to be heading on vacation and start drinking this evening, starting at about 5:15. So watch out. It will be great stuff. But we welcome each and every one of you. Ken says hello from Arcata. How you doing, Ken? Welcome, Scott. Nice to see you. Donna Wright is in the house from the Eureka Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much. Paul from the city of Point Arena. Thank you so much, Paul. It's good to see you. Thank you. Folks are streaming in, Mayor. This is a fantastic turnout for the conference and for the panel.
It really is. So let's get started. I don't know why I started coughing, so I'll make my introduction very brief. It's not like you need one. Thank you all. This is the end of our day today, or at least the end of our presentations, and we thought we would do it with the most energetic presenter I could think of. So Senator McGuire, who represents all three of our counties, is here. And I'm going to let him introduce his crew, and I'm just going to enjoy the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, just want to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor Seaman, for your incredible work. We are so grateful that each and every one of you made the jump over to this panel. We are so appreciative. Who would have thought, right, 16 months ago that we would be on Zoom or in Hopin? But hey, I got to tell you, no one does it better than the North Coast, and we are so appreciative that you're here. Let's talk about this panel, and most importantly, let's talk about how we're going to have a conversation here today. This panel is going to be focusing on the economy of the North Coast, present day drivers, as well as the booms of tomorrow. And we are so thrilled that you would take time out of your busy schedules. We're seeing folks from Mendocino, from Del Norte County. We see folks from Crescent City jumping on, individuals all from throughout Humboldt County is joining the panel. We say good afternoon. This summit has brought together an impressive lineup of speakers. And I want to remind you, we're just getting started today. There's an all-star lineup of folks tomorrow as well, which we know you're going to love. So make sure you come back in the week on a great way and spend it with us here at the summit. Now, this inaugural conference has a bold goal to be able to explore the economic opportunities of this amazing region that we all call home, and to foster innovative thinking as we look ahead. And even with all the challenges, and let's just be honest, we've all seen incredible challenges within our small business community, so many folks trying to stay healthy. With all the challenges that we've seen over these past 16 months with the pandemic, the North Coast, and the Golden State, we're on the move. We've got momentum here at home and across California. Here on the North Coast, several legacy projects will bring generational change. They are in the pipeline. And that's what this next panel is going to be focused on. Present day economic drivers and the booms of tomorrow. Across California, while we have work to do to bring our economy and workforce back to pre-pandemic levels, the Golden State, we are recovering strongly. The Golden State here in California, we're now the 5th largest economy in the world. Our economy, despite the pandemic, California's economy has grown by 20% over the last 5 years. Now compare that to Texas at 12%. We're the leading state in America for manufacturing, biotech, agriculture, and entertainment. In many rural areas of the state, you're going to hear from Ms. Pateta in just a bit. In many rural areas of our state, our tourism-based economies are nearly back or beating pre-pandemic levels. The state of California has created the largest small business relief program in the nation, investing a total of $4 billion in direct grants to California small businesses, and that's on top of the $8 billion in tax cuts to small businesses that we saw late last year and early this year. Now, here locally on the North Coast, we couldn't be more excited to be fans of lumberjacks. We couldn't be more excited about the state's investment to transition Humboldt State to California's 3rd Polytechnic University. Over $430 million has been secured to support this transition. And we know that this will be a game changer to the greater North Coast region, our region's economy and workforce, and it's going to lift up rural economies for decades to come. And this comes on top of the launch from the Bachelor's of Science in Nursing program, which was launched last year, which is a tremendous partnership between Humboldt State and the College of the Redwoods. And we're going to hear from Dr. Jen Capps all about it in just a few moments. And our final economic sector that we're going to be focusing in on will be, of course, our outdoor recreational economy. The state's outdoor recreational economy is worth a whopping $54 billion. And now with hundreds of millions of dollars that's been secured to help build out the Great Redwood Trail and trails throughout the state of California, which will transition a 300+ mile dilapidated rail line into the longest rail trail in America, the possibilities, they're only going up. So without further delay, I want to introduce you to our amazing panelists, 3 women who are leading the charge on the region's economy and California's economy. With us today, we have Carolyn Pateta. She's president and CEO of Visit California. Think of Visit California as California's Visitors Bureau, if you will. They're California's one-stop marketing shop. Their mission is to develop and maintain the Golden State's marketing program in partnership with California's travel industry, and to attract visitors to the state, to attract leisure visitors and business visitors and conferences. She's going to be giving us a full update on our visitor-related economy. We also have Jen Capps. She's the provost and vice president for academic affairs at Humboldt State University. She is helping lead the team, leading the effort that will result in HSU transitioning into a polytechnic university. We're going to hear all about this amazing project and what to expect here in just a few moments. And of course, we have Lexi Griddlefield. Thank you so much, Lexi, for joining us today. She is leading the California Outdoor Recreational Partnership, which promotes the $54 billion outdoor recreational economy here in California. And we know that there is no better place to enjoy the great outdoors than right here on the North Coast. She's going to be talking about the possibilities for today and in it tomorrow, as far as the years to come for the outdoor rec economy. Now, once we hear from these three incredible panelists, we want to hear from you. We invite you right now, please drop your questions, your comments, your concerns into the chat. We're going to be asking our panelists real-time feedback from each and every one of you. We're going to get to questions and answers in just a moment. Anytime that you want to be able to ask a question, simply drop it into the chat function here on Zoom. We're going to get those questions. We're going to ask our panelists in just a few moments. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to work. We are so grateful that Carolyn Bettetta is with us today. She's going to tell us California is open for business. She is the amazing president and CEO of Visit California. Ms. Bettetta, you know that I'm one of your biggest fans. You do such great work on behalf of the Golden State. Welcome to the North Coast. Thank you so much. Tell us, why do you think California is open for business?
Well, thank you for that, Senator. You are, incredible in giving us all this electric charge and hope and inspiration for the future, and have been a true champion for travel and tourism, particularly in this area. Just to set some context there, California's economy truly depends on tourism. I don't have to tell any of us that are here today together in the North Coast. It not only helps communities and grow, but it improves the quality of life for those living in these tourism corridors and many, many Californians. It's really one of the largest economic drivers for the state. In 2019, visitors spent $145 billion in the state. We are actually 1.5 times the size of the Florida tourism economy and 5 times the size of the Hawaiian tourism economy. Just to put that into perspective, prior to COVID, we actually directly employed 1.2 million jobs in hospitality, many here in the North Coast. As a matter of fact, just in the North Coast region alone, travelers spent $1.3 billion and generated $113 million in tax revenues, supplying our North Coast residents with almost 16,000 jobs. So definitely a foundational layer to the economy, and really one of our state's biggest service exporters as well. Unfortunately, the pandemic devastated the tourism industry. It erased that decade of growth. It was really on a scale 10 times the size of 9/11, and the hospitality industry had twice the amount of unemployment than those during the Great Depression, for example. Travel spending throughout the state fell 55% in California and 41% in the North Coast region alone. Our multi-year recovery, we're looking at 2024 overall from a state perspective till we get back to the highs of 2019. But as Senator McGuire said, despite this jagged path to recovery, California is now open for business. And thanks to Senator McGuire and him champion a $95 million stimulus, we are able to triple down in calling back visitors, Californian, inspiring people to come back into the state and bring their wallets with them, if you will. So with that, we are able to deploy not only dedicated California marketing dollars. I hope many of you in the audience have been seeing that media, but a 52-week national media buy also to stimulate that long haul traveler that stays longer and spends more money. Now, the good news for the North Coast is that what happened during the pandemic, unfortunately, is the gateway cities were hollowed out. They are highly dependent on group business, international, and they are really suffering. So we are not going to get back to those numbers mainly because of our gateway cities and the propensity of spending. But the North, oh, go ahead, Senator.
Do you want to describe the gateway cities real quick?
Yes, sure. So when I refer to the gateway cities, we're talking about San Francisco, Los Angeles, Orange County, and San Diego. Really about 80% of our spending occurs right there. But what's happened is the people during the pandemic still wanted to get out and visit, and they have, and there was incredible pent-up demand. So actually the North Coast is forecasted to reach 100% of 2019 room demand and 101% of room revenue, according to Tourism Economics this year. So they're actually going to exceed and accelerate and frankly lead the recovery because of your beautiful wide open spaces, the recreational product that I know Lexi is going to be talking about and others. And that really is the perfect synergy of having that demand, the product and the messaging and the invitation to get people back into these communities and bringing their wallets. So I'll talk a little bit more during the Q&A about the importance of tourism and raising the quality of life for citizens too, living in the North Coast.
Ms. Pateta, thank you so much. That's Carolyn Pateta, President and CEO of Visit California. And Julie Bimbo points out, she says, shout out to Carolyn and Visit California for all the support they give to Humboldt tourism. Thank you so much, Ms. Bimbo, for tuning in today. So we're going to hear from more.
Senator, real quick, she's a huge leader for us, and she sits on our statewide Rural Tourism Advisory Committee. So thanks, Julie, for that.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Pateta is going to be able to answer all your questions related to regional tourism, visitor traffic, what the expectations are for plane travel in as well. She's been very focused on an international strategy, how to be able to get folks traveling again. She'll be talking to you on all issues related to visitors and tourism in just a few moments. But before we get into it, there is an enormous amount of momentum on the North Coast, and a lot of that surrounds Humboldt State University. And we're grateful that we're going to be able to grow our economy with family-sustaining careers close to home, thanks to this massive infusion of dollars to transition HSU to polytechnic status. So what better way to talk about this is inviting Jen Capps. She's a university provost and vice president of academic affairs. She's helping lead this transition. If you want to talk to somebody who has a lot on her plate, that's why we have Dr. Capps here with us. She's going to be talking about the build out, the timeline, what to expect when fully operational. She's going to be talking about all issues of what type of programs will be embedded in the new Polytechnic University designation. And then also, she's going to be talking about the partnership with the College of the Redwoods and HSU in the Bachelor's of Science in Nursing program. Dr. Capps, we're so excited to be having you here and be part of this panel. We welcome you. The floor is yours. I'm going to have you take yourself off of mute, and let's talk about the big transition of Humboldt State.
Thank you so much. Grateful to be here. And thanks. There's so many people that have tuned into this session that have been a part of supporting this transition to HSU becoming a polytechnic. So just to set foundational information, what is a polytechnic institution? It's one that focuses on hands-on education. It aligns with the workforce, which is very much needed in this area, and it really doubles down on 4 key areas of science programming, applied science, which if you think about under applied science, it's health and agriculture are included in there, engineering programs, and then technology programs. And so those are kind of those four field areas of what a polytechnic is. Why HSU? Why was HSU selected? Well, we're already very much a polytechnic without that designation. And there is an eye toward the North Coast and the northern part of the state, that there are polytechnic institutions in the mid part and then the southern part of the state. But it allows HSU to be what I call a triple threat institution. So it allows us to fill workforce gaps that are sorely needed. It creates access to education for prospective students, and it stimulates the North Coast economy. So we're really excited about that piece. Through this build out, we built out a phased plan to launch polytechnic status officially by 2023, although things are moving quite a bit faster than that, which is terrific. And in part, that is due to this historic investment that came from the state of California, in part through collaboration from our campus, our chancellor, and the governor. And so there's been $433 million in one-time funding to support this transition, and an additional $25 million in ongoing funding to support academic program build out for these additional academic programs. What we see in 2023 is 8 new bachelor's programs, 1 new master's program, and 3 new certificates focused on things like software engineering, energy systems engineering, data science, cybersecurity, et cetera. So really excited about those pieces. What does it bring for the region? HSU is the largest employer in the area, so it's going to bring jobs, and more jobs, not only at the institution, but for the community and the broader area. That $433 million that I mentioned in one-time funding is very much to support infrastructure needs. So thinking about things like housing, academic programs in space, and in consideration of things like transportation, parking, technology, all of those elements. And so we've been working in tandem and in partnership with our external partners, welcoming in and trying to really break down any sort of barriers between the university community and our external community, and making us kind of one together. So really excited about all of those opportunities. And sometimes people go, well, why was HSU picked, right? Or why did this happen? And so I mentioned the North Coast piece, but really that HSU has all the foundational pieces to be successful and deliver on this promise. When you look at what the priorities of the state of California are, things like climate resiliency, fire mitigation, focusing on those healthcare shortages, those are things that we already have great expertise in and that can expand upon that. So the microgrid project that the senator mentioned, we're able to, in partnership with our Shots Energy Center, build out on that and launch an energy systems engineering degree. We have a Fire Institute and Fire Center. We're launching an applied fire science and management degree. And we're doubling down on really, really digging into the healthcare shortage issues. And the senator mentioned our RN to BSN program in partnership with the College of the Redwoods to really, really address the nursing shortage. And that includes not just in nursing, but in other healthcare areas. What I like to say is that oftentimes we focus a lot on physician shortages and the physician position, but there's a statistic I used to use a while back, and I still do to this day, that for every physician, it takes 16 people to support the work of a physician. And so what I'd like HSU to be known for is about that other 16, all of those other support positions to really help to support the different areas in healthcare so that healthcare access is easier for each of you. There's lots of excitement, and we're really excited about the opportunities ahead. And I'll stop there and turn it back over to the senator.
Thank you so much, Jen Capps. She is the Humboldt State University Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs. We're taking your questions on the transition to polytechnic status right now. We're taking your questions on tourism and the visitor-related economy. We're also going to be taking your questions right now on all the issues of outdoor recreation. Make sure you drop your questions. We're taking your comments, your concerns in the chat right now via Zoom. Simply type in your questions, your comments in the chat. We've been getting several questions and comments coming in. They're coming in fire fast, so we'll be getting to them momentarily. Again, our panel, present day economic drivers and the booms of tomorrow. And we couldn't have this panel without talking about outdoor recreation. And we're grateful that Lexi Griddlefield is with us. She is the head California Outdoor Recreation Partnership. She's going to be giving us the overview of California and being the nation's largest active outdoor industry economy. Lexi, I have shorted the economy by $3 billion. It's supposed to be 57 billion, not 54. She's going to throw her shoe at the screen in a second. She's going to also be talking about the importance of investing and supporting policies that prioritize outdoor recreation. She's also going to be touching on the Great Redwood Trail and how trails are economic drivers as well. Ms. Gritterfield, we are so appreciative that you're with us. Thank you for your leadership. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much for having us, Senator. We really appreciate the invite and a chance to talk to this region. So, as you said, California is the nation's largest economic active outdoor industry economy. And with that, we have $57.4 billion in economic spending annually and 578,480 direct jobs contributed just to California alone. These stats are from 2019 and were conducted by the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, and a new report will be out next month. Whether the numbers go up or down, we're blaming COVID right now, but we'll see how that turns out. Just so everyone understands what California Outdoor Recreation Partnership is and what we do for the state is we power a voice for the outdoor industry. We represent 80 plus member companies and nonprofit organizations and policy advocacy, but also being that voice for the economic driver behind the outdoor recreation economy. Members in the North Coast for us include Cocotat and Arcata, Camelback, and Petaluma. We also have individuals like Genevieve Marchand with the Recreation Administration at Humboldt State University. So we're grateful to have representation from the North Coast. California has 4 million acres of human-powered recreation resources. 66% of them are on national public land. Examples like that in the North Coast are obviously the Lost Coast Trail, Redwood State and National Parks, and we really recognize that outdoor recreation is a huge economic driver for rural regions. At CORP, that's our acronym, we advocate for 3 main issues involving outdoor recreation. Number 1 is equitable access, and our second pillar is workforce development and that outdoor recreation economy. And the third is outdoor recreation infrastructure. Examples of how we work on equitable access would be Senator Waso's bill SB 624 this past session, which was the Environmental Equity and Outdoor Access Act. And thank you, Senator McGuire, for supporting that on the Senate floor this year. We really appreciate that. And we hope to see that go through next year and maybe get the governor's signature then. We also work on protecting public lands, waters, and access to them. So right now we're working on 30 by 30, the initiative, which was Governor Newsom's executive order last year on October 7th, 2020. And it's to protect 30% of California's public lands and waters by 2030. And with our third pillar of recreation infrastructure, it lines up perfectly with your bill, SB 69, and the Great Redwood Trail Act, which the governor signed. Congratulations on that. We're really excited about the $16.5 million that's going to go towards that Great Redwood Trail and what that's going to open up for the region. For those that don't know, this trail is going to be 320 miles long, going from the North Bay up into Arcata. And it used to be an old railroad line that really wasn't managed well. So we're really excited that we can turn something that isn't pretty into something beautiful for the outdoor recreation economy. What happens with all this is we have members like Sierra Butte's Trail Stewardship in the La Sierra that are working on similar trails like this, and multi-use trails are huge for rural economies. They are an essential economic driver for rural development and outdoor recreation tourism. This concept of connected communities brings outdoor recreation enthusiasts and tourists in to boost your economy, whether they're mountain bikers, trip through hikers, you name it. And this will be comparable to the John Muir Trail, but even better because you can bike on it. So we're really excited to see what that brings for this region.
Thank you so much, Lexi. Really appreciate the report and the briefing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be able to take your questions, and we're going to give you those answers. We welcome your questions, your feedback here today. Simply drop it in the chat. Let's get right into it. The first one we are going to go to is is talking to Ms. Patetta. This comes in from Lindsay, the Willow Creek Chamber of Commerce. So Lindsay asks, how do you see the emerging craft cannabis tourism market and current marketing plan best working together? Food, wine, and cannabis pairings, ecotourism and small farmers markets with cannabis direct-to-consumer sales, permaculture workshops. So talk to us, Ms. Patetta, with cannabis now being legal across the state. How do you see this fitting in with tourism?
Definitely, it's part of the visitor experience for sure, Senator. And we intend to be working with our local destination marketing organizations, such as Julie that's on the phone with us, to work with them on various outlets. And we do have to be specific because, you know, under federal statute, it's still considered a controlled substance. So we just have to get creative in terms of how we promote them. But we can bring in familiarization tours. For example, there's certain areas by which we can link on our web properties. And we see it as an important part of the tourism experience, particularly when local destinations such as the North Coast choose to use it as an iconic feature. Then we can lift it up, but have to be mindful of following federal statutes as it relates to cannabis. So it's a real thread the needle, but we think it's an important new experience that is highly in demand.
Yeah, and I think that where Humboldt, Mendocino, along with Trinity has gone is looking at establishing the first organic process for cannabis in the nation, focusing on appellations and origin, very similar to what we have with wine, and creating that similar wine experience. And really, you have the premier cannabis growing region in America right here on the North Coast. And I think eventually you're going to see a mature tourism market grow out of what has always been a group of small family farmers when it comes to cannabis. Ms. Patetta, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I'm glad you mentioned the organic, move in this market segment, because sustainability and destination stewardship are now front and center in how we manage from a destination management perspective. So the more we can encourage those best practices from our providers, like we are trying to with our farming and agriculture and vintner industry, the better we are off, because the consumer, is particularly, the millennials and younger generations really are starting to lean into choosing destinations based on the sustainability and stewardship factor of these destinations. So the more we can get to an organic interface, the better off we are in the long run.
That's Carolyn Patetta, President and CEO of Visit California. We're now going to turn our attention to the transition of Humboldt State to a polytechnic university. We're going to go to Dr. Jen Capps. All right, Dr. Capps, let's talk about it. David writes in, with the polytechnic expansion plan, how should the community respond to support the housing need for new students, faculty, and staff? And are you concerned with the current state of housing in our region? And Dr. Capps, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think we're all deeply concerned in regards to the lack of housing, especially on the North Coast. What I'll say, though, is, Dr. Capps, is housing is a very specific part of the planning process, and you are going to be looking at building out on campus and the potential of off-campus housing. But I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Capps, to talk all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. And $433 million in infrastructure. That was a real big exclamation point to acknowledging that housing and academic program space is critical to our transition to a polytechnic status. So we, as part of our planning process, I'll say differently, a part of our implementation process now is the setting up of 7 different working groups to do planning for implementation. One working group is all about infrastructure, and then there's subgroups, and one of which is specifically focused on housing. And so there's a number of different projects at varied stages of planning on campus, off campus, as well as spaces that'll look at mixed use spaces and renovation of existing space as well. The other, so absolutely, we're in the process of planning out to make sure that we can support that growth, because it's a significant, robust growth that we're targeting. Where our hope is within 7 years to move up to 11,000 students at Humboldt State University, or hopefully forthcoming Cal Poly Humboldt. And that's significant. And so, yeah, the housing piece is definitely incorporated into that plan. The other thing is really thinking about Humboldt or Cal Poly Humboldt is not just an Arcata piece, but broadening our reach and our presence throughout Humboldt County more broadly, and even points north beyond that. The last piece is also focusing on keeping a bit of an online presence, really targeting 30% of our programming continuing in an online space. And that's critical and vital for access, particularly for a rural campus.
So Vice President Capps, let's talk some specifics about timeline. When do you think that we'll actually see breaking of ground for the first housing units that would be developed in let's talk on campus, off campus? And then how many units, I know we're still very early in on this process, the dollars only were secured on July 1st of this year, but how many units do you think you're going to need? This comes in from a question total when it comes to hitting that 11,000 student population. How many housing units total, and when will you start breaking ground?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that we're still assessing at this time. Right now, we generally we're looking at increasing 2,000 to 3,000 beds, and right now we have about 2,000 to 2,500 beds on campus, and then the rest is off campus. And so looking to double that if we're looking to then double our student enrollment, and perhaps a little bit beyond that too. And the other piece of it is very much about in consideration of staff and faculty housing and creating pathways there. And part of what we're doing is working in partnership with College of the Redwoods, as well as some of the health care agencies around, because they're also having difficulty with housing as well. Groundbreaking, it's probably a little premature to talk about that. We're probably still out a year or more on some of those pieces, but we're looking at by 2026 having probably several projects in varied stages. But I'd say probably within a year, our Craftsman Mall, the Craftsman Mall space is that first housing project. That's the one that's going to launch probably first, and that's pure housing, very close off of campus to support an increase in student housing.
We're taking your questions right now on all issues of the transition from Humboldt State to Cal Poly Humboldt. We're taking your questions on the outdoor recreational economy. We're taking your questions on California, one of California's main economic drivers. That's the visitor related to tourism economy here. We welcome you to put your question, your comment into the chat. We're going to stick with Humboldt State for now. Dr. Capps, here we go. This comes in. Will this also include more scholarship opportunities for students? And what I also say is there is state funds available for teacher-specific, educational staff-specific housing developments. In fact, we're about to break ground on 150 units in Marin on teacher classified and community college specific staffing housing. So that's something that I know Humboldt will be looking at as we move forward. But let's get into scholarships. How will scholarships work with the Polytechnic status?
Yeah, and may I just back up 1 second, because there's questions. So it would be silly for me not to mention. So Eric Riggs, our Dean of College of Natural Resources and Sciences, and Mike Fisher, our AVP of Facilities, they're co-leading the infrastructure team. So if you want to get engaged, be a part of the working group, please feel free to reach out to me. I can connect you with Eric or Mike to get more information. We want folks like yourselves engaged in that planning process. Scholarships, yes. So a big piece, scholarships, and I want to say diversity is a big piece of what we're really trying to bake into what Cal Poly Humboldt will be all about. We really want to define ourselves by who we include, not who we exclude. And so wanting to make sure that we prioritize diversity and pathways for students to jump in and seek an education here. So scholarships will definitely be built into, and an increase in scholarships for all sorts of reasons. So that's going to be built into the process, absolutely.
All right, we're going to be going back. Thank you so much. That's Dr. Capps, Vice President of Academic Affairs at Humboldt State. We're now going to be going back to Ms. Pateta. This question: how does the state tourism funding benefit the North Coast? Now, Ms. Pateta, these aren't direct grants. This is going for a statewide, a national campaign to be able to bring folks into California or visit regions of California. Ms. Pateta, talk to us about how these dollars have benefited the North Coast.
Yes, absolutely, Senator. So first and foremost, even prior to stimulus, as I mentioned, we're organized like an agricultural commodity board. There's 20,000 investors funding California tourism. In 2019, our budget was about $128 million. We not only did heavy domestic advertising, but we had operations and offices in 14 countries around the world driving demand for California. If any of these international visitors, particularly Europeans that like to visit the North Coast, stay a long time, spend a lot of money, if they're not thinking about California, they'll never make it to the North Coast. So first and foremost, we raise top of mind awareness about California as a destination, and then work with Julie and others to promote the North Coast in a handoff strategy, if you will, in terms of pairing visitor interest domestically and around the world to your regional attributes. We do that also with our earned media strategy. People that are writing from a media perspective, Condé Nast Traveler, journalists from all over the nation and the world, as well as now digital influencers is another area. Web properties. We have over 20 California welcome centers where we are talking to visitors when they arrive, encouraging them to continue to stay. So there's a multiple layer campaign of paid promotion that specifically targets the North Coast, owned media, earned media, trade relations, and now we're adding to that business as well. Meetings and events. It was shut down. California was the only state in the nation to be shut down. We are now, thanks to Senator McGuire's championing the stimulus, able to dedicate $5 million to try to get top of mind awareness about the North Coast as a meetings destination as well. So that's just kind of a short summary on how we work with our partners in region to highlight the area as, you know, one of the most premier places to visit in the world.
And a comment just came in from Jennifer, Ms. Pateta, saying that Visit California has done an enormous job and an enormous amount to help to promote the Redwood Skywalk, which is the longest skywalk in the world. I mean, that's been a huge surge of tourism coming into the city of Eureka and Humboldt. And those are the type of projects that you're really looking for that really help the North Coast stand out, correct, Ms. Pateta?
Yeah, so that's super iconic. That's been breakthrough for us, the Redwood Skywalk, and it's been front and center of what we call our What's New campaign. We've got, you know, we're connected to over 7,000 journalists around the world, and we put out quarterly what's new in terms of product, and we encourage our regional players to get in front of the media when we're breaking new attractions. So thank you for that comment, because that's been a big one for us.
That's Karen Pateta, President and CEO of Visit California. All right, Dr. Capps, we're coming back to you. We got a lot of questions coming in on the Polytechnic status. All right, this is our next one. To the Polytechnic transition at HSU, is it planned to be STEAM-based? I think you should talk about that. Including career paths in arts and design. Dr. Capps, what say you?
Yes, I mean, we're not calling it STEAM per se, but so part of the agreement and the plan out front was to focus on science, technology, engineering, and applied science. And there was an agreement between our system and actually just a double down, like we must continue to focus on liberal arts, humanities, and social sciences. So 100%. So that there's a huge commitment to our arts, humanities, and social sciences and those pathways to career. So with and frankly, that's one of the reasons, there's many reasons why we were selected to move through this process, of one of which was really the strength of our arts, humanities, and social sciences. So yes, and frankly, the requirement for people to have good critical thinking skills, writing skills, communication skills are vital to our success as an institution.
And Dr. Capps, how do you see that working with high schools? Humboldt State has had a real focus on trying to be able to keep students here. And those students who are going to local North Coast high schools have an opportunity to be able to attend Humboldt State. How do you see that happening, and especially with career training classes in science, technology, engineering, and math? Do you see that partnership continuing?
I do. I think, one big thing, it's a fascinating story, because I think this designation, people understand broadly what a polytechnic is. And so I'll give an example of my next door neighbor, 16-year-old kid, ran over to me and said, I understand you're becoming a polytechnic. Now I can go to HSU for my computer science degree. And I said, we've always had a computer science degree, but now you're a polytechnic. So I'm going there. I'm so excited I don't have to leave the community to go somewhere else. And I've heard that story over and over and over again. There's been a lot of focus, particularly through the excellence of my colleague, Vice President of Enrollment, Jason Merriweather, to really support and incentivize scholarships and pathways for our local students. But we're really excited to double down on and really build out pathways specifically in things like health, agriculture, engineering, all of those things with our local schools. So much more to come on this. It's an exciting time.
Dr. Capps, with Humboldt State University, soon to be Polytechnic designation, we're now going to go to Ms. Grittlefield. She is with the California Outdoor Recreation Team, and I want to go to Jesse. Jesse is tuning in today. How you doing, Jesse, from Covelo and beautiful Mendocino County? Are there movements to revive some of our Mendocino County trails, Covelo, Round Valley, Yola Boli, wilderness area specifically? I'd love to add movement to anything that might be in place or needing a nudge. So Lexi, the state of California has invested this year, it's groundbreaking, $500 million for non-motorized trails. This is a game changer for regions like the North Coast. It's a game changer for the Coastal Trail, a game changer for the Great Redwood Trail. But talk to me, Lexi, about, and talk to all of us about folks who hit the trails. They also are spending money at inns and going out to eat. And this is a significant economic driver in passive recreation in the state. Hiking in the state is only growing in popularity. But what do you have to say about that, Lexi?
There's two parts to this. Like, tourism will always bring in more money for your area, right? If you have people traveling in, they're spending money in your area, and that goes to your tax dollars, that improves your roads, that improves your local economy and what you see around you. So that's one part of the economic driver. But the other part of this is, she's asking about trails, and you can get involved. We would love to advocate on behalf of what you want developed with the money that's coming in. There's a lot of money coming into our state from the Great American Outdoors Act on the federal level too. So it's great to see all this money coming up. And the governor's budget on outdoor recreation was historical this year. So we're really grateful for that. You can get involved with us at californiaoutdoor.org if you want us to advocate on behalf of any specific trails. And I know that there are local nonprofits within the North Coast that are working on this as well, but we advocate on behalf of the whole state, and we're always looking for bills or things to get involved on.
Yeah, 100%. And we need to do a big shout out to the Humboldt Trails Council for all of their work. But Lexi, look, I don't think that there's ever been more funding to be able to build out trails, to rehab trails, than what we're seeing here today.
Yeah, it's super exciting. We see a huge turnaround statewide on all of this, but especially for the North Coast, it's like going to be huge, because that's what's bringing people into your region. And I saw a comment about what do you do about tourists that are not leaving no trace? And there's been a huge movement behind Recreate Responsibly. I'm on the steering committee for the California Coalition on that, and that's recreateresponsibly.org. So there are movements, and how do we make sure that tourists are keeping your area is clean and safe, and for the locals as well? I know that is a huge concern. Overall, there are movements around that, and we're working on that. But it's really exciting. I mean, how huge is this? 320 miles. We work with mountain bikers all the time. CAMTB is excited about it. Thru hikers are excited about it. And also our local companies are excited to have recreation enthusiasts come within the region.
100%. Thank you so much, Lexi. No, you're absolutely right. And Stephen does a big shout out to the Redwood Coast Mountain Bike Association, who have been doing a fantastic job on all issues of trail development. All right, I want to go to Ms. Pateta from Visit California. Ms. Pateta, let's talk about air travel. Air travel has been incredibly challenging, especially during the pandemic. The international air market has just taken a dump. Asia is not opening up yet. But in Humboldt County and Greg Foster, we need to do a big shout out to Greg Foster for all of his work. They've gone from one airline, 2 destinations now to soon you can go to Las Vegas and Reno, 4 airlines and 7 destinations. Talk about, Ms. Pateta, the importance of regional air coming into markets like the North Coast. It's really critical for the economy.
It's absolutely critical. We look at it in terms of lift, and particularly in the North Coast, because, you know, while it's a beautiful drive and we're always promoting our road trip Republican driving tours, there are just many, if we want to attract a national and international visitor, that would be coming in from air, and they'd be connecting from gateway areas such as San Francisco. So it is a game changer for the area to have this opportunity, since it is one of the areas that's most challenged by road access for people that have limited time too. When you're looking at in-state and national visitors, sometimes they can only take a long weekend, and they will definitely opt for air to get in and be able to maximize their time in the destination. And internationally, you know, they can't swim to get here. So we spend a lot of time with airlines. I'm leaving for London on Saturday, for example. The UK is a huge market for the North Coast, for example, and I'll be meeting with several airlines to try to reinvigorate lift coming out of the UK into California directly.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to have 40 to 65 buck flights to Las Vegas from Humboldt, watch out. Greg Foster is going to be living his life there in Las Vegas. And we also are going to be having flights to Reno coming up. Of course, we have United as a mainstay. And again, big shout out to Greg and of course the airport manager, Cody. Very grateful. Flyhumboldt.org, flyhumboldt.org for all the information. We want to go back now to the Polytechnic. Ms. Capps, talk about, there's still a lot of questions coming in on housing, Ms. Capps. So let's talk about that. I want you to, if you don't mind, be specific in regards to when you think housing is going to be moving. Who should folks contact in regards to the main point for housing in Humboldt State? There's great concern that we have a housing shortage now. And even though the Polytechnic status is huge for this region, we got to do it right and plan for getting heads into beds, right? So Ms. Capps, what do you say about that?
Yeah, you bet. And I pulled up some additional documents as we're speaking, because I predicted this to be an important thing that people are interested in. So as we're looking at phasing in, so we're phasing in our Polytechnic academic programs through 2029. And so I underestimated, so it's more like 3,000 beds for students by 2029, and doing these projects in a phased way. And so the very first one would be looking at like I said, the Craftsman Mall space, which is about an 800 bed facility. And that's the one that would likely break ground the quickest. And then there's a number of other properties in varied states of development in those pieces. And so 3,000 by 2029, phasing it in. And that's also part of the reason why we're phasing in the academic programs. And like I said, the other piece is about leveraging our online academic programs too. So we don't want a one way for students to be able to engage and seek education at HSU, but have multiple pathways to do so. So we're thinking very thoughtfully about, as we build out these new programs, are there going to be fully online pathways to some of these programs? The other part is that we underutilize our summer. at Humboldt State or Cal Poly Humboldt forthcoming. And so thinking about how we can bring more students and have more robust offerings over the summertime, evenings and weekends, those sorts of things to really be a pathway, but it also would help with some of that fear around that crowding piece.
And then there also is going to have to be discussion about infrastructure, right? Increase water and sewer use, right? Increase traffic on sidewalks. If we're going to be, if Humboldt State's going to be looking at doing off-campus housing, how that's going to connect with transit to be able to get students in. Ms. Capps, this is all going to be part of the visioning process, correct?
Absolutely, and that's why I mentioned Eric Riggs and Mike Fisher. And like I said, that they are leading this infrastructure working group that subs out into 5 or 6 different working groups focused on housing, academic space, the pieces that you just mentioned, transportation, all of these different pieces. And we've been fortunate throughout the planning process, as well as we're shifting toward implementation, to be able to come and speak to different chambers, to speak to different groups, to really update as we go and get feedback about what the potential pain points are and where the excitement lies. And so I say I think I know probably most of the people that are on this call today because they've been able to meet with some of the different groups. And so we will continue to update you as we have more information. But again, we get it. I mean, that has been our biggest barrier to attracting more students to HSU is really very much about our limited housing pieces. And so that's why part of the reason why there was such an investment in our infrastructure to be able to support that infrastructure piece.
And what I will say is, and please push back on me, Ms. Capps, is that President Jackson has been tenacious in his advocacy to the state of saying that, look, we can't build out, by the way, this is an amazing feat for our region. We can't build out a polytechnic university without having the proper residences available to the students and to the staff. And that is something that I think there's going to be an all hands on deck effort. But again, I just hope we're not coming off as coy today, not trying to avoid questions, but please, Ms. Capps, push back on me. But it's literally, we're just in the beginning stages, and we promise that there's going to be a robust process of how many units, when they're going to be built, what type of infrastructure is going to need to be improved, what's the transit plan. And the only reason why it's a little vague today is because we're so early on. But Ms. Capps, feel free to push back if you think I'm incorrect.
No, that's absolutely true. There's no kind of hidden thing going on behind the scenes. It's very much, we're at the beginning stages. We haven't even finalized the implementation infrastructure working group membership yet, because there's been so much focus on the different subgroups, making sure that we're able to be able to identify all of the different components and seek the right representation from all groups. So we're very much, you have up-to-date information, and we'll continue to report out and provide the information. We are, just as an aside, I mean, we're not Cal Poly Humboldt yet. We're going in front of our board, in the Board of Trustees in November for the informational item. And then it takes, it's such a big deal to become a polytechnic and change our name that it goes back for an action item in January. We'll go back in front of the board for that official vote. So we're really actually trying to get ahead of with this planning process now, because we haven't even officially become that polytechnic, although the state has already said, we support you and we're investing in you.
The money is in the bank. The plan is coming soon. So by the way, it's usually the other way. We're planning until we're blue in the face and we're waiting for the money. I mean, this is because of the surplus, a $75 billion surplus this year. The state of California invested what typically would be a 3 to 5 year plan, all in 1 year for HSU, which is incredible. I want to ask each of you leaders a quick question. I'm going to ask for a 30-second response. Then I'm going to ask each of our panelists to be able to give us a 30-second closing on why you're hopeful for California's economy, why you're hopeful for the North Coast economy. But before we do, final question, I want to start with Lexi. This comes in from Carrie. Recovering from 9/11 was pretty specific, focus on jobs. But with COVID impacts, there were much larger impacts to our entire economy. And our region needs to respond with coordination among all jurisdictions so funds available can be utilized instead of lost in our region. Talk to us, Lexi, about your belief in coordination and collaboration as we move forward coming out of the COVID recession, and how does the outdoor recreational economy play in our recovery?
Yeah, it's been tricky right now. A lot of our members are having trouble hiring back, and we're actually really excited about this concept of a Cal Poly and Humboldt area. Is we want to hire local. Our member companies up there like Cookietat, Camelback. This will open up that opportunity for them to hire more jobs locally eventually once that comes together. But coming out of this pandemic, we're ready to look at shovel-ready projects to green jobs in the area. And I think that's what the Great Redwood Trail will bring back to the region, is those green jobs and restoring that economy there. Especially when we see such a huge problem right now with global trade and that we can't get products into the country. Like our outdoor recreation economy is booming, I believe, but we don't have the products to sell. So it's going to be an interesting year coming out of this.
Damn right. Ms. Gritterfield, we're going to come back to you asking why you're hopeful here coming up, but I want to go to Ms. Pateta from Visit California. So more than ever before, coordination, collaboration. Talk to us about your approach with tourism. How is that working for you? Because we all need to work together more than ever, right, to ensure long-term recovery and success. Ms. Pateta, your thoughts on behalf of tourism?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the challenges and fears we had, because we do rely so much on partnership going into COVID, was the fact that we were sheltering in place, and how are we going to connect to forward the business? Zoom certainly is a game changer for B2B or business to business contacts, so we could maintain those relationships with our tourism leaders in the North Coast and start the planning, the pivot, and specific messaging needed for that iconic area. I don't know, Senator, if this is the time to talk, if you wanted me to talk about what I have in terms of hope and inspiration.
Please, fire away.
Okay. Well, I do. I'm going to leave with some great news, because what we saw during COVID and the recovery is the North Coast is posting some of the strongest recovery for all of California. I think Californians, with the fact that they couldn't check their worldwide bucket list or national bucket list, have woken up to the wonders of California and the North Coast. I talked about how strong the returns were this year, but the region next year is forecasted to reach 105% of occupancy and 110% of room revenue over 2019 numbers. So it is just great news. And I think, more and more to come to be able to fund the community through tourism development.
And Ms. Pateta, that's amazing. I'm going to go to Ms. Capps. I want to get her closing thoughts and then also talk about collaboration. But Ms. Pateta, I mean, you look at some of the larger jurisdictions that you mentioned in the beginning, LA, San Francisco, they're challenged because of conferences, right? Because international travel, but being 105% of occupancy and looking at room rates up, that is massive, because that also means additional bed tax for vital services as well, correct?
That's absolutely correct. Plus the sales tax revenue that stays in the community as well.
That's amazing. Carolyn Pateta, again, huge fan, so grateful for your leadership. It has just been a challenge. Thank you so much for joining us. President and CEO of Visit California. No one does it better than Pateta when it comes to advocating for California. All right, Dr. Capps, we want your closing comment. Also talk about collaboration. 1, how important is collaboration as we move forward? 2, why are you hopeful for our North Coast economy?
You bet. Thanks so much for including me. So collaboration is vital to our success, and we've already had so much collaboration, and we hope to have that continue in the future with our build out to Cal Poly Humboldt. It is that alignment between the community, understanding the workforce needs, and your partnership and all the great questions that you've asked today with respect to infrastructure, transportation, sustainability, all of that. I put in the chat the folks that are leading the effort on the infrastructure piece. And I'm super hopeful, because through aligning our academic programs with where the workforce shortages are only going to create access and opportunity for people to seek education and access to that education. And it's through that we're really going to be able to stimulate the North Coast economy. And it's just truly a pleasure to be part of this transformational opportunity, and much gratitude to so many of the people that are tuned in today, because you've been a part of this. So thank you.
Nice job, Caps. So grateful. Dr. Caps, Vice President, Academic Affairs, and helping lead the way in regards to the transition. So appreciate your leadership. All right, Lexi, why are you hopeful? 30 seconds, please.
You got it. So the Outdoor Foundation conducted a study earlier this year on how the pandemic changed the outdoor user group. And what I'm hopeful about is that for the first time ever, the average outdoor user is more diverse. It's actually a woman now, and more people of color are getting outside. So I'm hoping we can sustain that user group. I'm hoping we see more diversity in the outdoors coming out of the pandemic.
Absolutely. Lexi Griddlefield, she runs all issues of the California outdoor recreation industry. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to remind you to please make sure you head back in to hop in for the interactive expo and booth experience. I got to tell you, Mayor Seaman has lined up a cavalcade of stars in the big booth experience. You're not going to want to miss it. They are ready to hear you right now. So after we are done here, jump back on to hop in and go check out the convention booth experience. As you enter the expo hall booths, leave your full name in the chat. And here's why, because you can win chocolate. You're darn right. At the end of the conference, all entries, if you put your name into the chat, once you get back into the expo, you're going to be entered to win a Dick Taylor chocolate gift basket. I got to tell you, I am ready for some Dick Taylor chocolate. It is among the best in the world. The more booths you visit, the more times your name will be entered. There's also an opportunity to be able to network with all the amazing folks who are here today. And then, of course, don't forget, tomorrow, there's a full day of session, incredible speakers. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists here today, Ms. Patetta, Ms. Griddlefield, Ms. Capps. You have all been fantastic. Thank you for your leadership here on the North Coast in the state of California. One big round of applause, everybody, to all the organizers of today's summit, tomorrow's summit. Thank you so much. Special shout out to Mayor Seaman for her incredible work. And I'll tell you why I am hopeful. I am hopeful because of the people of the North Coast. We pulled together when times are tough, and we are now on the move. We have huge momentum like never before, whether it's our tourism economy, Humboldt State University, the Great Redwood Trail, the nursing program. We are on the move. Thank you so much for your commitment to our community. Thanks for joining us. Get back on to hop in now and go check out the booths. Have a good rest of the day, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator. Bye-bye.